Hey guys, go ahead and share your screen if you like. And I'm here, but I'm like I don't have my headphones with me, so I can't really hear you guys. So
welcome to the jungle. This is Turtle Island. I'm not fully convinced.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, hold on. Let me share this shit. Hello, like, where this shit at? Okay, let me start with this. Yo, you see that white colony thing? Or I don't know if Neuro Jack's probably seen this.
I would like to see an all-white colony. Be interesting.
Yeah, let me show you this, man. If I could
Like
find this.
Switzerland.
I gotta go to history because I saw Sanity Machine was watching this. I turned his show on for a second and I was like, this is pretty interesting. But this documentary that they made was actually pretty good.
I like documentaries.
Now I can't find the damn thing. So give me a second, guys. But yeah, if I open this up and then I'll open up Southern Israelite talking to this guy because I don't think Neuro Jack's seen that. And then maybe we'll get a nice show going based off of that. Yeah, so actually, let me see white only colony. Let me just type in white only colony. White colony. Oh, okay, here it is. Okay, yeah, I found it. The whites.
What's the matter?
Oh man, I just fast forward through a commercial that I felt like watching, honestly.
Is the documentary called White's the Issue?
It's called Whites Only. Yeah, whites only community.
Random white people. We're people who all had an interest in this. There's already that really strong bond beyond just our universal shared heritage with, any other white person would have the same, but we're kind of from the same community online, largely.
In the mountains of Arkansas, a former French horn player in a Chinese orchestra is building a town with no blacks, Jews, Indians, Mexicans, or gays.
I've seen.
But yeah, like it's interesting that it's like an online community. Like it started as an online community, he said. And he's an influencer. So yeah. So yeah, they show how he's an online influencer. He's had debates with numerous people. I don't know if he's debated the people that we know. I know he probably debated Adam Green. Yeah, so but yeah, these chicks look weird. One of them's pregnant, just to show you, like they're having more white babies soon.
What happens when rural white towns get overrun with people who are not from there?
Look at people who aren't glad to be who they are. Go on hormone blockers. They seek to change their identity. Maybe you become a furry if you're really zesty.
Who followed him here? And what?
That kid looked like Nick Fuentes.
I'd rather be white than a Furby.
I'll tell you what,
Right.
we don't have certain problems. I'll tell you about them in the first 3 seconds of this documentary.
Yeah, I wonder if one of the white people want to be furries, what they're gonna do about it. I guess they might not let them have TVs either, or phones, or
Or yeah.
you had to control the
All I
information.
know is
bro.
the houses better be white.
Yeah, the houses look white as fuck.
Do they hope to accomplish? We went to find out.
How about stop attacking me? And maybe I won't be so anti-Semitic.
Our journey to the whites-only town started in Zinc, home to the KKK's headquarters, 2 hours to the west. After shooting a video there,
Breath come up with that?
It said 2 hours west of KKK.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder if they're benefactors. Like,
I know. What is it, LaRoche? I think he
Right.
covered it. Them being connected with Benai Breath and
right.
yeah, crazy. Which makes sense, man. You know, they always got to fund some form of accelerationism or extremism.
This dude's a Neoplatonist. It's
Oh,
kind of
yeah?
interesting. Yeah, he's not a Christian, but he's a
This
white
doesn't sound very
nationalist and a
Neoplatonic.
Platonist. Yeah.
Most
I
of them
think
are
this sounds to me like the
Satanists,
dude just sounds to me like he's grabbing some labels to call himself. Very
Was it?
very interesting.
When he says Neoplatonist, what does he mean? What is he practices Kabbalah or something? What is he doing?
Yeah. What is he doing? It's a good question.
Yeah, he's got one of his YouTube videos is called The Metaphysics of Race.
Interesting.
So
you know, this is like where, from an Orthodox perspective, like we would say, you know, it's the heresy of ethnophiletism, and it's not that man can't be, can't love his own race of people or his own people. That doesn't mean to hate your neighbor. See, they conflate these things. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I love who I am, therefore I have to hate somebody else or something. I don't know. It's pretty strange. That type of thing.
Yeah. He also, so far I've heard a little bit of a victim mentality coming from what they've said so far. But yeah, it's interesting. This is very unique, actually.
I'll be right back, guys. I gotta go do something real quick.
yeah, no worries.
Coming next month, so subscribe so you don't miss it, we drove east to where the cell service stopped and a dirt road began. At the end, we found Return to the Land.
It's interesting that it's got the same name as the thing that Paul Enslave is talking about, right? Is that right?
What is Man on the Land?
Man on the Land, right? Isn't that interesting, right? The Carl Lentz. Is that the guy's name?
I'm
Man on
not
the
sure. Yeah, if you said you've heard it, I believe you.
Yeah, his movement is like Carl Lentz is a guy, and his movement, I think, is called Man on the Land. And I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Funny, there's similar name, right? Return to the Land.
Oh, Return. Okay, yeah.
Return is even weirder because the term return, right, is Jewish because it goes to the idea aliyah, which is literally called it's literally like Aliyah or ascension is literally also called return to the land. So when a Jew makes Aliyah or ascension, he returns to the land. And it's funny that it's called Aliyah because remember the Jews blew up that black singer named Aliyah in a plane. Right? So it's like all symbolic. Like she was ascending as she blew up.
Yeah, for sure. This is a very wild video so far. This is cool.
Yeah, it's tripped out. Yeah, I found it because of Sanity Machine. Shout out to Queen Queefin.
Like, yeah, I'm kind of at this point. I'm kind of wondering like how much are they LARPing? So we'll find out.
Right. Oh shit! Oh shit! Tactitus. Tacticus. Oh yeah.
America was settled through the founding of self-sufficient.
Check that out. Quite a symbol, isn't it?
It looks like a weird way to plan a development of a city or like of a cul-de-sac or something.
It looked kind of like Hyperborean symbol. Honestly, that's what I was thinking of. Right?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's just like, but on top is a square.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that his symbol does look like that, but it's an arrow pointing upwards instead of a square on top, or something like that.
Kind of looks like.
But yeah, it's a reworking of a swastika for sure. So
it's an Ozarks community. Interesting. Okay. I didn't pick that up
it's in the
earlier.
Ozarks. Yeah.
Got some nice water, maybe.
You got some nice water, some nice tributaries, some nice land to farm and shit. There's humidity and shit.
Intentional communities. But after the end of segregation.
What was that?
Sorry, I just said they have nice symbols.
Right. They got cooler shit. Like I've seen some cool shit there.
The expansion of non-white immigration, the broader society no longer felt like a home for traditional Americans. RTTL returned to.
Look at that. That is fucking beautiful, isn't it? Like, wow, look at all those colors. Like, that's incredible.
The land is a private association founded to allow Americans who value their history and heritage to form communities around these values.
Eric is the founder of this whites-only community, which has grown to 40 people. He's also a major online figure.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Nick Fuentes today.
With diversity, we've forgotten how to interact with each other because there are people from all around the world in your communities. No one knows how to get along anymore.
We had a fascinating conversation with Eric.
Even in mostly white towns, people aren't exactly pro-white. We're kind of beaten down with the history of slavery and oppression, and I don't want that stuff passed on to my kids.
But before that, he took us around, introducing us to the residents who shared why they had moved here. We first met his ex-wife and current wife, Caitlin and Allison, who are residents.
In coming here, is it more about finding a traditional rural lifestyle, or is it about the racial component? It's whites only, European heritage.
Well, for me, I grew up in a mostly white area anyway. I think it was more the homesteading aspect for me. I've seen what happens when rural white towns get overrun.
Are both of those chicks pregnant? What the fuck?
I hear nothing but banjos. Ding, 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 ding.
Southern gal.
With people who are not from there, and it usually does kind of result in chaos. So living in a place where I can be sure that that's not going to happen is a level of comfort for me.
I like that we can vet our neighbors here. I mean, you can move anywhere in the country, but you have no idea what it's going to be like in 10 years. I like letting...
She looking a little mixed. I suspect... Look at her nose.
Yeah.
That ain't no white nose.
Yeah, they don't look entirely white.
I don't know.
Yeah, she's taller than the other white girl. It's like...
Speculation.
I don't know. I'm calling it how I see it. And that ain't a white girl.
My kids go out and play. They're not going to get like run over or snatched by someone.
When I was exposed to more multicultural places, it was, you know, cities that felt more dangerous.
Did she
and
just
out
said
of my
snatch
comfort.
someone? As if white people don't snatch kids? What the fuck? Oh god. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look at the Delphi.
How to
murders.
isolate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a key part of this that is seem like maybe like not a good idea. Is like because if you're so far away and then they like raid your community, then what would you exactly do?
Zone, and people didn't seem as friendly.
I mean, what would
Just look at like
anybody
the crime
do?
statistic.
That right, but it's more likely to happen to you if you don't live in a fucking like neighborhood that's next to like 20 other neighborhoods. But they did bomb like move headquarters like in Philadelphia, and they firebombed it. So they bombed a house in Philadelphia, like just in a neighborhood in Philadelphia. So I guess it is possible for them to just blow up any house. Right?
So wait. Why did they do that? And who did that?
It's
I ain't
like
gonna
when
lie,
they were
that's
like
crazy.
looking for like Mumia Abu Jamal and the people that are like linked to him and shit. Like they were doing crazy shit, like freeing the animals from the zoo and shit. And they were writing like anti-tech manifestos. And they were like, "We need to take them down. Take them down."
Oh,
John
okay.
Africa and move. Yeah, look up Philadelphia 1996 bombing. Move bombing. M.O.V.E. So yeah, it's crazy. Here, hold on. Let me pull this up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it. I mean, some of the stuff that they have just in military warfare today, I mean, people, it's not a joke when they say that you won't even see it coming.
Well, you know, we all know what happened at like
Oh wait,
places
yeah, I
like
got the
the
year wrong.
Ridge and with Cooper and the Ridge and all those different
1985.
accounts.
So yeah,
You know,
1985.
One of the last places.
Yeah, look.
That's insane.
The last.
Yeah. Yeah, but the important part is the bombing of a house, right?
It's crazy, dog. And like they straight. Well, I mean,
Yeah, they straight up
so they're
bombed
not
a house
scared
like,
to do
in a
that.
neighborhood. Yep.
They're not scared to do that, dude.
Yeah, they're not afraid to like just blow up your house. It's in the middle of a neighborhood, like especially if there's like not too many other houses like directly next to it. Like they could do a clean bomb and just drop it.
Well, I don't know, man. You know, it's
Well,
like
you see,
we live in
that's why I like LARPing about Leon, because see, the sad thing about Leon is you know, once he realized that they had the ability to cover up Raccoon City, what else were they covering up? And that's basically what they're doing with the series now, is psyoping people. They're like, yeah, all along we've been allowing it to happen. So, you know,
Cold War, bro.
Yep, there you go. It's just, you know, a little bit warmer. It would be probably a little bit warmer this time.
Yeah, man. Crazy stuff.
So just to
Yeah, let's. I got a good idea, guys. Let's follow Nick Fuentes into the woods.
No, thank you. I don't know. What's he doing out there? You know.
Right.
Did you ever see that video of him? Someone
Heading up
coming
the
into his
areas, bro.
apartment or something. Someone like tried to come into his apartment with like a motorcycle mask, and they like shot somebody earlier that day. Supposedly, did you guys see that?
Yeah, I think I did see that. Yeah, it's like
that's pretty crazy.
Two different attempts. It's two different attempts.
Hey,
right?
Yeah. But
is it okay?
Strange.
Do you guys think?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I was gonna say is that I find it strange that a lot of these like InfoWars guys and their associates, they seem to be getting raided, or the cops coming after them. They posted on Twitter, but you know, something like that could be used to give legitimacy.
Seizure of information. Sorry.
You get what I'm saying? It's like it can be used to, legitimize somebody in the eyes of the public if they're viewed as being persecuted in some way.
Well, it's also called you have no rights, and they can storm your belongings and take whatever they want and use it against you when they need to.
One thing's for sure, they all have mayonnaise in their house.
You ain't got mayonnaise in your house, bro?
That's what I commented under a video. I was like, my wife is Polish. Like, she's literally like part Ashkenazi or whatever. So so I've had to open up numerous pickle jars, straight up, because they like pickled stuff or whatever. Like they eat pickled stuff a lot. So they're weird and shit. Right. So so I commented under the video. I was like, I've opened numerous pickle jars. Like, I can't believe this dude can't do it. And it's crazy. Like, I mean,
oh, you're talking about, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know.
Right.
I remember that.
They call you Piccolo.
I was very liberal.
Yeah, exactly.
At one point, and being targeted because of the color of my skin and called racist for things that had nothing to do with skin color really kind of opened my eyes to how other people view white people. Well, it was harder to establish.
I feel like Neuro's scouting this out to possibly move here, but
right.
Let that man live, bro. With his white folk.
I want to see. I want to learn.
Wow. yeah, they wouldn't allow his white ass there.
Yeah, that's right. They actually wouldn't. So yeah, and that's because
they'd have open arms with him. He'd fit right in.
Yeah, that's what y'all think. But yeah,
I'm playing.
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, let's check this thing out here.
Good rapport with people who didn't seem interested in having good rapport with me.
Day-to-day life here. What's it like? What do you do?
So obviously you can see that our house is not built yet. So we live in a town nearby right now, and it's just kind of slow, boring, lazy, rural Arkansas life. Not a lot going on. You just do what you need to do day to day, play with the kids, whatever.
But I did kind of want to bait him into the conversation with this video, but I don't think it's working. But he tries to bait me in with Muslim videos and shit. But yeah.
Hey, dude, check out this
residents either don't
Sam Schumann video, bro. Check this one out, bro.
I know exactly. Right. Like, you see that new David Wood just dropped?
Work remotely or in nearby towns. They're building their own homes and trying to live off the land. One resident, Scott, originally from Massachusetts, told us that this was essentially an online community that had taken shape in real life.
That's the part I found most fascinating. You know what I mean? That
that part scares me the most.
Take Pinoid's Discord and start his communitarian thing. Or Paul Enslave, another guy that's said something like that. Right,
this is Pinoy's Discord in real life right now. This is the real life server, dude.
Yeah, I think the guys make a lot of good points, but it's because he's look, you can't have everybody try to kick out the white people. You just need it. If you want to live with white people, go live with white people. And that actually makes a lot of sense because he's you're not going to change the government, the rules. You're trying to look for some unrealistic goal, trying to fit society to your cookie cutter view of how everybody should be. And he's we should just try to seek plurality amongst others. And just be look, we're one group among other people, so let us just live on our own, straight up. Which is, he's got a smart way of going about it, for sure.
I mean, yeah, is it really any more different than, a bunch of Chinese people living in a Chinatown? I mean...
Exactly, right.
Yeah, it's no different. So, I mean, even up here, there's a good population of maybe Pakistanis, but they're Indonesian. There are definitely a few people from India up here, and they have a good few businesses up here, and they all
Right.
live in the same neighborhoods together, and they don't really venture out much. So
yeah,
they don't bother nobody. What's wrong with them? As long as they're not harming anyone or pushing like neo-Nazi rhetoric, I don't, I mean, if they're fucking each other's sisters, I guess that's up to them. But
yeah, you got Jackson Heights in New York. You got Devon Avenue in Chicago. This huge, just a whole street of just markets that look like fucking India and Pakistan. If you just walk through it, it's just like, it's weird. You even got like street food vendors and shit. They took over the entire block. It's fucking insane, right? But yeah.
Yo, New York is like a patched cloth, bro. Like, it looks like a patched cloth. If you like fly above it, if you were like coming into the airport, the amount of different cultures and the way the neighborhoods are, even like the different coloring of the paintings they use and everything, it makes it look like a quilted robe or something, or a blanket. It's crazy.
And signs aren't in English. People that I don't recognize, I don't know anything about their culture. They dress different, they act different, they speak different languages. I don't know how I'm ever going to bond with those people. It's alien to me. So I moved down here because I liked the...
See, that's cool. Like, whatever that is, it's like some type of thing. Runic, like some art or whatever.
It's crazy, dude. Again, this guy just promoted some fear stuff. He's like, well, I don't know how I'm ever going to bond with anybody else different than me. Dude, are you afraid?
Yeah. I mean, let's just face it. Some of these people are probably allegedly a little racist.
Dude, I'm not convinced they're not LARPing still. Like, I haven't seen any evidence.
It could be. I mean, they could be very well crisis actors just meant to cause racial strife among people who look at it.
You don't understand. Arkansas, them people are racist as hell, bro. You don't know, dude. Them people don't like black people, bro. They don't. They don't want nobody. That's what them folks are. A lot of places in the South is like that. So not cool, but it is what it is.
I like the project. It was nice being around people that I could just talk to. Couldn't really talk to my neighbors where I was at. I mean, I could, but I didn't necessarily agree with them politically on things. I like being around these people, so wanted to buy land with them.
Yeah. Jonathan, a truck driver from North Dakota, spoke of saving white culture. We believe God made the entire world. We believe it is everyone's responsibility to uphold what God has given them. But this is what God has given us. Look at people who aren't glad to be who they are, right? Like, they go on hormone blockers. They seek to change their identity. Maybe you become a furry if you're really zesty. I wish that they had been taught to love themselves as how God created them, to embrace themselves, not taught that they were the enemy of every story. Oh, everything about you, like all of your immutable characteristics, come from people who are evil and committed these genocides. And did you ever study the Crusades? Don't forget the Salem witch trials. And it's like, mate, like, I can't change who I am or how I was born.
One thing you hear is like, it's
total victim mindset.
Right, but why would you take credit for either the Crusades or the Salem witch trials? By the way, are two totally different projects.
I guess I'll speak it from experience. Okay, one of the scariest times I was ever messed with when I was dealing with that racial stuff from the blacks was we were sitting in history class and we were watching a documentary on that kid Emmett Till or whatever, who was, brutally killed or whatever. And they automatically associated me, because I was a white kid in the class or whatever, that like, because the people who did that to him were white. So like, from a standpoint, I can understand like if they were being legit, why they feel that way. But like, in the end, I can tell you from a majority of black people that I've known and I've met, they don't ever really like, a majority of them don't hate white people. That's the general consensus. It's like, you might have your few, same thing with white people. A majority of white people like me, I don't hate black people. It's just, you know, if you want to call it stereotyping, yeah, I mean, everyone has a certain way of how they act. And, you know, it just the general problem is, you know, everyone's going to act a certain way. I can tell you, I've been to plenty of nice white neighborhoods, and I wouldn't trust living around them. Like, you know, I mean, it really goes down to is, you know, who is your neighbor? You know, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I just wouldn't want to live in a group of people. You know, me personally, if I could help it, I would just live to myself. I don't understand why anyone would want to live in a community of people where, with the way that they're sounding, and if one person gets in trouble, they might all be held reliable. Because, you know, I mean, this guy, he just seems fake. I mean, if you're asking me why I'm going to go and join in a community, it's not because of race. I can tell you, I've met plenty of white people who act just as bad as any other race. So my purpose would just to get away from society. To me, it sounds like what Brown's Boy says. It does kind of sound like a LARP in a lot of ways. It does. It sounds like a LARP. In general, most people aren't going to, I mean, again, it says, I mean, I would rather live in a group of Chinese people than I would white people. So make that make sense. Anyway, sorry. I just don't believe that it's about race completely. That part feels like it's a
No,
LARP.
they've already brought up their victim status. They've already brought up they can't connect with their neighbors because they dress differently and because their political views are different. This is Nick Fuentes is in here. This is like a total like sham thing. I'm very interested to see how these people like pretend to conduct themselves.
It'd be un-American to punish people for the sins of their fathers, right? Like to punish you for slavery or punish me, you know, for slavery. Like that's not American. That's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way we're supposed to live. Yeah. On the other hand, to elevate ourselves because of our heritage, because of say what white people accomplish, you know, because of Mozart and Bach. Would that not just be the other side of the same coin?
I will disagree on that point because Beethoven and Bach are way better than like Diddy and Pac. It's not because it's like, oh, I am better because some German produced a great piece of music 300 years ago. I don't think anyone thinks that way. Like if you say that these things are equal, these cultures have produced an equal product and effect over the course of 300 years, you're just... I know you're lying, and even you know you're lying.
I'd say most sensible people wouldn't say, you know, that like Nicki Minaj.
I wonder how much black music this guy has in his, you know, music library.
That's exactly what I was about to fucking say too. Yeah, like how many black artists do you probably have, or like, you know, do you go and get a blunt wrap and smoke weed? Like seriously, dude, come on.
Yeah, you smoke weed to Mozart or what? It's crazy.
And Beethoven are comparable, right? I'd say like take like your kind of middle of the road conservative American. I think that they probably think that they're like, obviously Beethoven is better than Nicki Minaj. Obviously there's, you know, Bach is better than Tupac.
Yeah, but like, I mean, you know, like compare like Britney Spears to like Isaac Hayes. You know, what about that? I mean, you're doing the same thing. You're, you know, comparing a composer to video whore. Like it's not even a
Well, I mean, and then like go and flip it on its head. What if Beethoven or Bach or Mozart or any one of them were black people? Then would you have a problem with it? So there you go. I guess because they were white, you know, performers, it was okay. I'm just saying, do you like the music because it's the music, or do you like the music because it's made by a white man?
Yeah, they don't like what it represents. Sounds like, and I'm pretty sure Tupac and whoever else, maybe Biggie or something, they lived in completely different times, in completely different regions. And I don't even think like a grand majority of people don't even really have a choice where they live. So this is all grandstanding and trying to sell an ideology of some sort of a fake purity. That's what I'm getting from it.
Yeah, and And what he's pointing out is actually true, and I don't think the kid is actually getting it, because what he's trying to say is that no, you have an exclusivism. You're not saying that you like your own people because you like them the best because they're your people. No, you're saying they're the best among all other types of people, which then puts them in a class of the best, which then puts them in a class of the only, right? Which then means that there's no other people that have ever produced anything good, which means there's no differences between you and other people. So the exclusivity, it's this Jewish move where you say, no, we're not only our own thing, but we also define everyone else. And it's like, well, that means that there's only one thing. There's no differences between people. Right? So he doesn't get the subtle point that this guy's making, but yeah, it's a real issue. It's like, it's like you cancel out everyone else and you become the only thing, and it's like it becomes a different shade of universalism.
Do you think that's true when they're playing like Nicki Minaj and rap music at Republican rallies? When's the last time they've played Beethoven at a Republican rally?
That is a pretty good point, though. Like why don't they play like why don't they play real shit at a Republican rally instead of like why do they? They're supposed to promote conservative values. Like he just pointed out the scam. So yeah.
The question is, why not emphasize that Americanness? Why emphasize the skin tone-ness? I think the average person wouldn't say we did this, because at this point it's like they've been in America, maybe like their grandfather came from Italy, their grandmother came from France, their other grandfather came from Spain, their other grandmother came from Portugal, and they're white, but like in their skin color. And beyond the skin color.
That's right. See, it's universal because those are different types of people at the end of the day that accomplish different things. So which one are you? If you're just white, then that's just general. And then you create a white community, a black community, a yellow community, and a brown community. And you got 4 communities in the world. And that's even less than we had before. So it's even less differences than we had before if we're just going to universalize all the races. Right? Like, that seems really wrong-headed to create.
There's not much there to link them to a civilization, to a white culture, to white achievement. It's just that they happen to be born like this.
Well, the question is, what is under attack? We are able to observe attacks on our people. We are justified.
I mean, this is the thing. It's crybaby shit, because it's like, it's like they,
keeps going on about it.
Yeah, I mean, who's being ethnically removed? All right, I mean, it's not white people. All right, like there's actual people being ethnically removed in the world. Right, like they're being ethnically cleansed, like Muslims out of China, like Muslims out of Russia, like Muslims out of Israel. And those people are being ethnically cleansed out of those places because they're brown Muslims. All right. So I don't know. I've not seen that happening to white people anywhere.
And feeling a little bit of like by proxy attack when they tear down the 5th, the 4th, the 18th statue of one of our ancestors. They're actually symbolically attacking us as a people. We feel attacked. Our women feel attacked. Our children feel attacked. And it takes us men.
Yeah, don't tear down that statue of Albert Pike because you're attacking me personally.
And to actually say it out loud. If I go to Memphis, Tennessee, and walk around in Orange Mound, I will be attacked. And for no other purpose than I'm the wrong person that wasn't supposed to be there.
What the hell? Is this the Boats and Hoes remix? Hoes in the Snow?
She is snow
reminded. I'm kind of reminded of like what it looks like this video is portraying is like a pre-version of the Native Americans, where like this is giving people an opportunity to form themselves into a community so that the government doesn't have to necessarily do it themselves. like how the natives were forced to be in communities on land that they were told to go to. This is like, oh, well, you have the choice to do it, and you should choose because you're a victim, and you do everything better than everyone else, and you should just do this. Man, God bless anybody who follows this shit.
What's wrong? You don't want to be in the Hunger Games? You want to live in the 12th district with Katniss Everdeen?
Unfortunately, I don't know those references, but
Oh, well. The Hunger Games,
no.
you know. No.
Hunger Games, I don't really know, but I heard it's not good.
It's not good. May the odds forever be in our favor.
All right, back to the snow hose. Dicks.
Hi, I'm JT, and I made Result Hunter, the search engine for conservatives. Let me just tell you what it does. First of all, big tech right now is
This guy.
Oh my god.
So he's not gonna he's gonna tell you what's really happening. He's not gonna edit the search results, to make it show only conservative stuff. Or what? What's the point of a search engine then? You duffer.
This is how you learn who you are, who more about yourself. This search engine for conservatives only.
Right. You wanna a search engine that filters out the results and doesn't show you all the information.
Yo, can you do like a Muslim only search engine commercial? That shit would be hilarious.
Yeah, you need like rice and naan. Like you need like a shot of that for some reason. You need like food there. You need like some pictures of food.
run by a bunch of elitist people who all happen to vote the same way and who all happen to live in huge cities on the West Coast. And so Result Hunter takes those elitist values and elitist sources and kind of pushes them down a little bit in the search engine.
So it's literally a useless search. It doesn't tell you what's going on. It selectively picks information. So this is crazy. It's like, do you want a search engine that does what Google does, but in a different way? Like, I don't understand. Right? For a different set of values? I don't know. Like, can we get an unfiltered search engine? That's crazy. Right?
You know all that stuff that's going on that runs downstream. Well, we've got the best bottom search results of that for you to understand who you are. I mean, who makes something like this, man? This is brain frying what this dude is saying.
It's probably just an AI program that just compiles links instead of like gives you answers to questions or whatever. But yeah.
Now, if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe. Our mission
That might have been the
News
worst
is to
commercial I've
capture the
ever
world.
seen, honestly.
But that's crazy how his subscribe thing popped up right after the commercial. You notice that? Like he planned his subscribe thing to pop up again right after you see the commercial. Interesting.
World without bias or fear. That's what we're trying to do with this video and everything else we make. Also, if you're enjoying this video, consider becoming a Roka member. You can scan the QR code on the screen, and this will take you to become one. Right now, it's our Black Friday sale, 50% off. Every single morning, members get one email to their inbox with original reporting from our team or a story that breaks down one of the biggest topics in news. So thank you for watching, and back to the video. What united all these people with Eric, the undisputed leader, is a sense that white people have been tricked into hating themselves.
Millions of young Americans, if they could choose, would eliminate their own race. They would intentionally not have white children so that their race, their skin color, they think, will not be perpetuated. If that's the ideology that you've accepted, that being white is bad itself, being who you are, what you were born as is bad, then what's your self-concept going to be?
Eric is a classically trained musician who performed with Shen
God.
Yu, the Chinese dance troupe you've seen advertised in your city. He says classical music helped push him toward white nationalism.
What was your path from being a musical performer with the Chinese ballet troupe to being here running a whites-only community?
So obviously I didn't have the exact same beliefs back then. Also, I still wanted to make it in the classical music world. So from that perspective, a job's a job. It was mostly conversations online, becoming more familiar with crime statistics, racial IQ differences, scientific study of human differences, persuaded me that this isn't something that can just be overridden by a little bit of liberalism and equality and government programs. We will always have these long-lasting, deep differences between different peoples. Instead of structuring society as if that was not the case, we should probably structure society and make choices based on that reality.
How would you like to see our society structured differently from the way it currently is as a whole?
I think it can actually be more pluralistic and more successful. I think.
See that answer? Like, so he's actually like, he's very smart with that answer, right? Because he didn't say like, let's change the entire country to make it more white. He said, no, let's keep the idea that we need differences among people so that you could just leave me the fuck alone. So yeah, so that's pretty interesting how he did that. Definitely a smart move. But yeah.
Yeah.
More power.
I feel like he's saying, I really feel comfortable complaining around only white people is
right. Like qualitatively, you don't really achieve much. I guess that I don't know. It would have to take like 2 or 3 generations for actual change to happen, and then to see if.
And like, think about this. Like, so far, all I've seen is like 3 houses. All right, to me, that's called an Airbnb. You, me, and Lorp rent this area out, and then we make a video, pushing these stupid ideas, and use actors to, which is kind of seem like they are so far, and then you just make a video, and all it cost you was like $600, maybe like $2,000.
Yeah, remember Enoch News?
No.
They had like different news things or whatever, but they had like different like news channels, and one of them was ran by Falun Gong, the same organization that runs the Shenyun, like Chinese orchestra, right? That group is trying to infiltrate like the Chinese government. It's actually very interesting, right? So the Falun Gong thing is actually like they create like news companies, or they've done that in the past, right? So like this might be like something that's promoting, you know what I'm saying? Like this news channel might be associated with the Shenyun, like Falun Gong people or whatever. Since they're involved in like the entertainment industry, they produce like news channels and shit. And then this guy could be tied to that organization since he was in that orchestra. Yeah, that's where he worked as a classical musician. So it's pretty interesting. Weird thing there. Because yeah, you're right. Like, why would they be promoting this community here? Right? It seemed like it's advertising. Like, hey, if you want to go live here, like,
I mean, economically, they could have 100% spent under 10K to produce this video. That in turn is going to be pumped through media outlets to sell fucking properties in specific areas and attract, people fall for this shit. So like, yeah, so if there's money to be made, someone's gonna be in there, and yeah, okay, just watching.
Or should be given to local communities, whether they be homogeneous like ours, or whether they're more integrated racially, culturally, etc.
What is it about white culture, about white heritage that makes you proud of being white?
I do think our musical traditions are.
Again, it's Beethoven. Like, is that all you got, dude? Like, there's two guys that they're like, what's better about white people? And they came up with music out of all things. I don't know, man. You know what I mean? They definitely
let's see
yeah.
Let's see the instruments that they got laying around. I'm sure they're just waiting.
Yeah, like jazz, reggae, hip hop. Are you kidding me? Like these were not created by white people. They're huge traditions and things behind them that are like, pretty much, I mean, you could just take away, right? Like, hip hop and right, reggae because they rely on electronics, but jazz music. All right, there's been jazz musicians that I'm pretty sure they've produced some pretty complex works, and and some of them were white, but it wasn't like started by white people, right? I don't know. It's interesting.
Are exceptional. That by itself doesn't mean that we're the superior civilization, but I think we should take pride in what we have done well. But it's not about just how smart are you, it's also how willing you are to challenge established beliefs.
You're talking about a willingness to ask questions, and this. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say this is a byproduct of European culture. Other people would say it's a racial genetic difference. What do you think?
I would say there's a feedback cycle between the culture of a people and who they are genetically. During the medieval period, criminals were executed at really, really high rates. And so those problematic genes that were more prone to violence and theft and things like that, they were kind of weeded out of our population. And that didn't happen equally around the globe. Also, what is celebrated? If you celebrate individuality and individual accomplishment, then in the sexual market.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost think like the opposite is true, right? Because if you look at like white people in general, and this is just an observation, right? They seem that, yes, they're more able to question things, but they're usually less disciplined than like other people. And that's because they got punished a lot. Like Muslims have some brutal punishments. Like you cut your hand off if you steal some shit, right? Like white people weren't doing shit like that. It's not like the Muslim punishments were like softer, all right? So, and it's not like the Muslims weren't executing people and shit, right? So it's like, I don't know, man. It's just like that doesn't really make a lot of sense, all right? Because if you see like a lot of white people that are like smoking meth, they're like drinking beers all the time. And you see like talk to the next like 12 brown guys and they just go to work and come back. Right. So it's like it's kind of weird. It's just observation, but yeah.
Marketplace, different things will be valued and sought after.
Speaking of the sexual marketplace, in a past life, Eric made porn. Something he attributed to a nihilist phase.
Those videos were out there. It's regrettable that I ever engaged in that behavior. I wasn't a Christian at the time. Actually, I was a self-described moral nihilist. Most people rely on their common sense. I've always kind of relied on my beliefs. And at the time, I believed in moral nihilism.
It's still kind of weird. Like somebody does like joins like a cult or like does like some sort of weird sexual act with somebody. Like it takes a lot to go and do stuff like that. Because it's like you got to take a lot of steps to go and do shit like that. Like it just doesn't just happen overnight.
100% of these people are living in a community. They're all banging each other.
Yeah, it's interesting. But it's like, yeah, I mean, it's ran by a former porn star, so that's not a good start for sure.
It's the hazard. If you are like too intellectual, you abstract things. I converted Christianity, left that behind me, and it was more than 10 years ago now, so it is what it is.
I like how like he's not a Christian anymore, but he still used it to prove he's not doing porn anymore. Yeah, it's kind of weird. All right, what's this?
I like the Google Maps and see how close the nearest Freemason lodge is to that area. Or even just check and see if you can see if those houses were on actual like Airbnb or something, and like they're just LARPing. They're doing a production.
Right.
If I could prove that, I'd like to get like $2,000 for proving that.
Christian, but a kind of nihilism remains. He believes America's culture and economy are collapsing.
You're right. Like they keep showing that same road when they pull up on the place, and there's like just 3 houses. So it's like it doesn't. And when they're showing this, they're just showing like a forest. So it's like we're not seeing.
They're using a drone. Any production company team has a drone.
Yeah, they could have like still flown over the drone and been like, here's like a John Madden, like here's a circle around the community, like here it is, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, not yet. And so they're selling the ideology. They're really like everything else there does feel like a prop because all they've done is talked about the ideology. That's really it. Like where have they gone into their house? Like, oh yeah, we built this. Like, no. This is crazy, man. At least Owen Benjamin built shit. I'm not shilling for Owen Benjamin, by the way.
Yes, interesting quote. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this quote. And I'm trying to think like how long was it before like America became the most powerful state in the world to the world government being established. Like it's literally like they had like only 20 years to be the most powerful state. Like before that it was Britain. Like it was a really short-lived reign if you think about it, because in the 1800s they weren't the most powerful state. And then all of a sudden after World War II they became the most powerful state, but then shortly after that the world government system was established.
Yeah.
So it's and they like created Israel and they've been serving Israel ever since. So like I don't know. It seemed like he had a very short reign to be the most like would you have like 30 years?
I call it assimilation. Well, of course. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when people think of when they came to America, you think they really came to just establish a free land?
Yeah, but I don't know if you guys. I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys know this, but I don't know if you know Sebastian Bach. He was white. So deal with that because
yeah, play that funky music, white boy.
Dude, the last line there says our nation is prior to and greater than the United States. What in the fuck are they talking about? Be specific. Don't show me some Airbnb houses, cry about how you're a victim, and say how everybody else does everything wrong. I mean, this is where we're at. I've seen 3 houses, drone footage, fake, shitty put together quotes, people victiming and crying about who they can't get along with. I mean, this is fucking nuts, dude. And they're above the United States.
Yeah. And the other day we were watching Jim Bob, and he said he wants to deport the Muslims. It's pretty funny, man. Like he just like it didn't have to do with like anything in his video, but he was just like, yeah.
Dude, I have half a mind to personally just deport him, just pick him up.
Well, I think they should deport the transhumanist to Epstein Island. I think that would be a good place to keep all of them. And then they can all just live there and have bub babies with their electronic wombs.
that there's a conspiracy to make whites hate themselves, and that politics won't fix it.
What do you think about Nick Fuentes? Do you think he's the highest profile figure who kind of aligns with your views, or where does he fit into the way you see things?
You look at me like I have 3 heads. All I'm saying is minorities are really obnoxious.
I align with a lot of his perspectives. Ideologically, I would say we're mostly aligned. So apparently I am now dead to
Funny, Nick. I find you obnoxious.
Right. I mean, he classified himself because he's half Mexican.
Just reminds me of the fish from fucking Nemo. I'm obnoxious.
Yeah. I was thinking of sending this dude a message and being like, you know, like doing the whole thing like European shit, like founded liberalism and universalism, and that's what's actually corrupting white civilization. So it's the betrayal of the West by its own system of values that it created. And then you think it caused your progress of your civilization, but now it's causing your civilization to fold by letting in all these other people that everyone thinks is the same as them because of liberalism that you created. So I just want to ask him, like, what's the deal with that, bruh? Why y'all running from yourself?
Privately DM'd him asking for clarification.
You could tell why they don't want to talk to me, because it's the same question every time. It's the same 3 questions they can't answer them. It's crazy.
Everything bothers them. Everything bothers them. That's how they act. If it's not this, it's that.
Yeah, it's wild. Sensitive.
On his stance on birthright citizenship.
If you have citizenship, if you were born in this country, this is your birthright.
I wanted clarification from Nick before I defended him publicly.
Eric Orwell, Arval, is
There it is. Return to the land and birthright. 2 Jewish terms.
Oh, man.
Isn't that really weird? Birthright citizenship in Israel.
Judaism, son.
It's just kind
Israel's got to be. Israel's got to be laughing, producing these videos, getting these dumbass white motherfuckers to believe this shit.
Right. Be like, you need to return to the land because it's like, you know, you have a birthright.
Well, I mean,
they're like, we got them to do it too.
I mean, don't they believe they're going to have like 12,000 Goyim slaves? So, you know,
like it could be like multi-layered mocking, where like they're taking the idea of being independent from the system from many angles, and then they're parroting that by putting politically charged bullshit in there and mocking, you know, it could be a whole like double layer, triple layer mocking thing where it's like, it actually is not a bad idea to do the function of like what these people are doing, but then like to pile the fake LARP production on top of it, knowing that people will believe, or
it's just weird. Like they're using Jewish terms because they're using the term nationalism, right? Which is like just like Zionism, right? They use the term nationalism, right? Then they're using the term, you know, this whole concept of, the return, right? And they have a thing in Israel called the law of return, right? Where the diaspora Jews were allowed to return back to their homeland, and they got the birthright citizenship. So, and now he's talking about birthright. So it just seemed like it's like 1 in 1 with the terminology, right? And maybe they're doing that on purpose, right? Because they're also like billing themselves as anti-Semitics, or whatever.
Yeah, that was one of the very first things they said.
Right.
Are you against birthright citizenship in DMs?
On this particular,
now he said birthright citizenship. Now he called it the Israeli term. That's really weird.
Citizenship.
He just used the full term now. So, but yeah, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
I'm willing to like. I'm I haven't it's gonna sound bad, but no one's honestly really been that good at like proving me personally wrong in like a little while. So like I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, because it's linked to Nick Fuentes, which has massive links to corporate media and Hollywood or whatever, that because of that and because of the other stuff I said earlier, the ideology being the focus and the shady way that it looks like it's kind of being produced so far, I'm willing to go out on a limb here and say this video that we're watching is 100% propaganda, and the people inside of it, 80% of the people in the video aren't aware of what they're actually doing, or they are aware, like they're actors or whatever. Prove me wrong, please. Somebody make a video, tag me in it. I'm interested.
I would like to prove you wrong, but unfortunately I would have to agree with you, because just like Denise shared a video of that mix dude who pretends like he lives back in some like early time period, and he wasn't famous on YouTube until he did a video with a good old buddy here in the video. So, you know, yeah, Nick Fuentes is nothing more, nothing less than just a actor.
I got a counter LARP if you guys want to get in on it. We can make I guarantee you, like, if it's worth money, I'll probably do it. Nick Fuentes toilet paper, every single ply or whatever you call it of toilet paper section has a picture of Nick Fuentes' face on it. Don't you think we could make some money on that? Or maybe I'm wrong.
No, technically it'd be infringement on his likeness. So
with or without
he could sue us.
With or without the doo-doo on it.
No, well, it'd still be copyright infringement by using his image.
Really?
Yep, you can't even use a picture of Bob Ross because his hair is trademarked.
Well, then that all that means is we have to change the way Nick Fuentes looks.
Use the outline, maybe.
I got some ideas, man. All right. If you guys want in, we'll talk later.
Yeah, we gotta help deport those Muslims so Jim Bob can live in peace with the gays and the atheists and the Jews, right? And you know, with his Asian wife, right? So this would be a fun time. If it would be a peaceful time for him, you know, if we would just get rid of the Muslims.
Really? F you. You're dead to me.
I'm very pessimistic that they could ever achieve meaningful change from the top down. And with people like Nick Fuentes leading the Republican Party in the future, you're not going to have a lot of non-white people in the Republican Party being very enthusiastic about it, because it'll be seen as the party of white people. Because
non-white.
Okay. So Nick Fuentes is a plant by the left. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, let me go back. What?
You're dead to me.
I'm very pessimistic that they could ever achieve meaningful change from the top down. And with people like Nick Fuentes leading the Republican Party in the future, you're not going to have a lot of non-white people in the Republican Party being very enthusiastic about it, because it'll be seen as the party.
But he is non-white.
That's exactly what the left. Is that not exactly what the left would want? So if he's the whatever future or whatever they're claiming, it just seems like
let's create like this racial stigma, so then we'll attach the right-wing people to it so that they'll lose like all of their votes and shit. Like, that is a good point that he just made. He's like, it's actually working in reverse. And now you see how, you know, Nick Fuentes is actually supporting Gavin Newsom and stuff like that. And then,
oh my God.
So it seemed like they're even moving to the Democrat side, and they can even do that and critique the Republican side, right, or whatever. So me and Neuro Jack pointed that out too. That it seemed like a long time ago, we said, "Well, this dude's a plant," and a bunch of his fake ass fans came up and like tried to talk to us. Right? It was crazy, man.
Nick Fuentes identifies as pro-white. He says the country should be normatively white. Would I personally prefer that? Yeah, because it's what the country was when my ancestors came here. It's what, my bloodline thought it was signing up for. We have, in the meantime, invited a lot of people in. It is baked into the cake. We're going to have a multicultural society. So the best that we can do is have a government that respects the rights of all these different groups to go their own way and have their own peaceful communities.
Eric's answer is to create a separate world and let the rest go its own way. To avoid anti-discrimination lawsuits, the community is structured as a private club where members apply and get a plot of land if accepted.
So Return to the Land is our private membership association, and that exists for people of European heritage who want to preserve that heritage through intentional communities. We chose to do an LLC, and then all of the residents here, they buy shares in that company. So we all collectively own the land together through that company. Getting into the PMA, that is Return to the Land itself, is relatively straightforward and easy. You fill out the application, you do an interview, and then you sign an agreement and you're in, and then you're in our chats online. You can organize with people. If you wanted to buy into this community, you would have to come down here, spend a couple days with us, get to know us, and then the members collectively would kind of make that call. Do we want this person in the community or not? I think the acceptance rate is something like 50%.
Bro, I bet you I could infiltrate that shit. I bet you a lot. I could infiltrate that for sure.
Eric is explicitly.
And a 50% approval rate, that's not very high.
No, he's just giving you the idea that we may or may not accept you. That's all he's doing.
Right.
To nudge you to be more white or to be disinterested.
Right, yeah.
Dude, that's some
segregationist, and he does
really weak shit. I'm sorry, I thought it was over. My bad.
No, it's cool. Let's see what this says here. Let's see what it do. What it do? There's no scenario where I'd be upset by members of another race forming a community for their own group. Yeah, that's fair enough.
That's just them validating their own position.
Right. Some non-whites do seem very upset when whites do our own thing. Why is that?
Victiming.
I don't care. I actually don't care. And I'm actually, people may or may not know this, but I am with a white individual, romantically involved with whites. So yeah, I don't know. It does do what it do. I don't think I know any white people who'd get really mad about, say, Cambodians having a neighborhood somewhere, especially if it were in a country founded by Cambodians.
Dude.
Wait. Cambodia is a country, not a type of people. So yeah, of course. They didn't get, like, I guess he doesn't know what type of people live in Cambodia, right? But yeah.
doesn't call for removing minorities from America.
So I don't think that segregation should be forced, and I don't think that integration
Okay, well
should
then they're
be
not allowed to
forced.
eat tacos.
Which is to say the way it was in the South, say 60 years ago.
That was government enforced segregation in many cases. And I don't think we should, that's not the role of the government, in my opinion.
Rather, he's just given up on integration and says societies are better off living in their own bubbles.
I actually believe in the literal sense of multiculturalism. Different cultural groups can coexist in one political framework, and there are many historical examples of that. Assimilate into what as well? What is the overarching American culture that people are supposed to join? We don't have a national...
I'm sorry. I know that you guys know this is an advertisement, but all right, never mind. He's got the hair from Saved by the Bell. If you remember that show.
Yeah.
These are some professional white people.
Let's see what it do. Let's see what it do. It's I guess there's 4 more minutes of this.
Language or religion, we have always been multicultural. I think it's in keeping with our tradition of being tolerant and free as a society that we can embrace different communities going their own way.
Well, right. So see, this is the issue, right? Because it's like you created a system where everybody can be their own thing, but like you also created an ideology where everybody has to be the same way. So it's like, so it's like we could all decide now that we all want to live in separate communities, but then we're all following the same path to get there. Or it would be like you would have to have a global system where everybody decides that, right? Whereas if you just separate from what's going on, you might not totally clear yourself of the entire mess of things. Like, I don't know, like what happens if like another community gets set up right next door to this and it's like not whites only? I mean, it's like, I can see like they're in one place and like they have an attachment to the land and they can have stand their own ground and stuff like that, which is good. But it's like, I don't know, at some point it's kind of like sitting ducks.
Critics say Return to the Land is anti-black. Its founders are far more focused on Jews. Eric and his co-founders' X accounts are filled with posts alleging that Jews control the U.S. and are...
Oh, shit. Let's read this Jew stuff. Jews build their own institutions. They have temples, legal advocacy orgs, etc. You will never level the playing field with them. If you're not helping to build a pro-white, and okay, it gets cut off. Jews built their own institutions. They have communities, schools, temples, legal advocacy orgs, etc. You will never level the playing field with them. Wait, is that the same? That's the same exact tweet. They just repeated the same tweet and they're acting like it's a different one.
I don't see it. Oh,
like look, they're like there's all these tweets about anti-Jewish stuff, but then they posted the same one twice. And it's like, everyone who's not a Zionist should unite against Israel's influence over our society, left and right. That's totally true. Never support AIPAC controlled candidates. Absolutely. We'll disagree about other things, but I'm never going to counter signal someone for being against foreigners running our country. That's right. Dear non-white people, if we whites are replaced in our homelands, it will just be you and the Jews. What? No, it's the white people that have been helping the Jews this whole time. The white people created Israel. What are you talking about? Like, the white people housed the Rothschilds and all this stuff. Like, the Jews got really powerful because of white people. Like, what are you talking about? Judaism aims above all at the global influence of the Jewish people? Right, and there's a lot of whites that aim for the global domination of the Jews. So what are you talking about? They think that they're called Christian Zionists. They think God chose them over you. Right, and so do some of the whites. And some of the whites think they are Jews, by the way. It's fucked up. It's true, though. Right? Go clean up your own backyard, Arvo, from all the white Jews. Like, what are you talking about? You will miss us if we disappear. Yeah. Oh, it's the white people that are protecting us from the Jews when they send their fucking when the Jews send the Americans to go kill all the other fucking people for the Jews. Oh yeah, it's the Jews that are that we got to be scared of, and the white man's gonna protect us from the Jews. You hear that? I mean, that sounds stupid as fuck.
Responsible for the anti-white agenda.
I've never heard a Jewish person look back on their history and say, we shouldn't have done this in Weimar Germany, or we shouldn't have pushed for this in the United States, or we maybe were trying to interfere too much.
No, you're right, dude. The people who created Israel, they're going to protect us from the Jews. Yeah, please go on with your ideology. Like, what? Your ideology is trash.
I don't know if you heard, they've been doing a great job, man. Look at history. The white people protecting others from Jews. That's what they're there for sure.
Yeah, this is crazy.
In the affairs of other people. I'm not saying they're guilty for all things or they're the source of all evils in the world, but there does tend to be a very one-sided perspective where they expect us to always have guilt and always to think badly of our own history, but they cannot for a moment entertain that the Jewish community has been hostile or detrimental to our society.
We draw very different lessons from what happened in Europe in the 40s. Where I draw from it that the lesson is the Holocaust and the killing of millions of Jews. And had this stuff not happened, had we not had, the US and England do what they did, all the Jews in Europe would have been eliminated and many Slavs would have been made subservient to the Aryans. And
damn, he's pulling out the JQ, and he's doing like the whole like Anne Frank thing where he's like, poor Jay. So let's see what happens.
Other groups would be gone, homosexuals, disabled people. Whereas you draw a very different different lesson.
I think a lot of guilt has been put on the Germans in the middle of the century. I think a lot of the kind of fantastical fears of what the Nazis would have done if we didn't intervene are unfounded. The Jewish community, they don't want me or anyone else alleging crimes on their part, but they're perfectly comfortable alleging every ill motive in the book onto the Nazis. I think a lot of it is motivated by wartime propaganda because the victors write the histories. I have no intention of ever attacking a Jewish group. On the other hand, Jewish groups have condemned us. Jewish journalists have written hit pieces on us. We're minding our own business. I've done nothing to these people. So if they are afraid of me being anti-Semitic, how about stop attacking me? And maybe I won't be so anti-Semitic.
On the one hand, Return to the Land is minding its own business in a remote community deep in the Ozarks. Yet on the other, Eric is a major online figure who leads a movement that blames Jews for what he says is the plight of the white race in the US today. His language is reminiscent of the stab in the back theory, which blamed the Jews for Germany's loss of World War I and led to the Nazis' rise. Regardless, though, Eric's focus is not on World War II or the 1930s. It's on the future, where he hopes to build a place in the Ozarks today. His language is reminiscent of the stab in the back theory, which blamed the Jews for Germany's loss of World War I and led to the Nazis' rise. Regardless, though, Eric's focus is not on World War II or the 1930s. It's on the future, where he hopes to build a place in the Ozarks that preserves white culture for his children's generation.
You're envisioning, based on everything I've read on your website and everything, that this will be the first of numerous communities like this.
Right.
So what's your vision for Return to the Land 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now?
Well, we're not a political organization. We're not seeking political change. We are just trying to give white Americans the option of having their own communities if that's what they want. I think a lot of people do show with their demonstrated preferences where they choose to live, how they choose to associate, that they do actually value their identity. But you can get in trouble with your employer or sometimes in legal trouble if you say that explicitly and openly. So if we are doing something political there, it is trying to normalize white Americans embracing their own identity if that's what they choose, just like Black Americans do, Jewish Americans do, other groups do it.
On the one hand, these people were all minding their own business in the woods and weren't bothering anyone. While they hope to expand out west and elsewhere, they're more focused on building their utopia than reshaping America. But on the other hand, I couldn't help but wonder if rather than paving a way for a new society, they were just launching a feeble attempt to hide from the real one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe. We have an incredible series coming out from Arkansas and Mississippi. This is just the first video from that. Thank you, and smash that subscribe button.
Smart founders know something.
So there it is. Project Hide the Whites. Whites hiding. Let the whites hide. All right, let's go to the next little thing here I got. I just didn't feel like looking at the stupid ass fucking Zoltan Isvan thing again.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The other day when I saw that we were reviewing it again, I was like, if I see this thing one more time, I might jump off a fucking bridge.
I'm not seeing this.
Most of us.
Where he did the talk with Southern Israelite. See, I searched it and it didn't even come up. I literally typed in Arvol Southern Israelite and nothing came up on YouTube. So thanks, YouTube, for the mental jujitsu. But all right. Okay, so okay, there goes Browns. How about you let those people live their lives? It's weird. It's so offensive to many in itself. Yeah, like, you know, let them live. Let them live.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am here with Drake of the Southern Israelite channel. Drake reached out because
So we've talked to Southern Israelite. We've not talked to Arvol yet. So maybe we'll get Arvol on the show if he wants to come on and ask him about his white community.
I guess some of his students recommended.
And ask him if I'm married to a white, can I move to his white community? If our kids will be half white, will they be white enough?
That we had a discussion on Platonism versus a more kind of traditional Near Eastern interpretation of the Bible and Christianity. Of course, I'm a Christian Platonist. In many ways, I emphasize the Platonist aspect of that. I don't consider myself an expert on the church fathers. I have read many of them.
Everyone wants to live where the white people are. That's because they got the Rothschild banks. They're off the chain. Wherever the white people live, you got the Rockefellers, you got the Rothschilds, you got all the good products. Right? That's why everybody likes the Hershey's bars. They like the Dove soap. Yeah, they like that shit. They like that shit. The chemicals. They like that shit. The GMOs. It's great stuff. Great. Hashtag great stuff.
Care about the Christian tradition, but I'm not a biblical literalist like Drake is. And I think this will make for an interesting discussion. He has some unique views. So to get started with, if you just want to introduce yourself to our audience, and then maybe you can kind of explain.
Yeah, the Amazon was a poop river. The Amazon was just a poop river before white people took over the Amazon rainforest. It was just a poop river. Didn't you know? They really pumped that place up. The Amazon River and the rainforest, they really helped that place a lot. It's great. They're doing a fine job.
You know, what is your position? Where are you coming from? How do you come to it?
Yeah. So my name's Drake. I was raised kind of atheist, and my parents would take me to like a liberal Lutheran church when I was younger, they didn't really talk much about the Bible. I didn't really care much about anything or know anything about the Bible and religion until I was about 19. A friend of mine who was a Hugo Boss model had he had a drug overdose in Milan, Italy. He was my best friend, and he about died. And he like prayed to God for the first time in his life right before he died, and asked God to save him because he thought he was about to die because he was blacking out.
Right, like Lake Erie and Lake Michigan, right? They're in great condition because of the white people. Right, all the waters of the world, they're doing great because of all the inventions of the white people, don't you know? They never poisoned any of the rivers. They never did any of that. Come on now. You know, go take a look at Lake Erie, you know, where they dump the chemicals in there to change the color of the lake. And they kill all the sea life in there. They got dead zones in the water, destroying the coral reef. All right, it's all right. You know, but tell me about the poop river. All right.
And he has a radical conversion experience, and he was a total drug addict, womanizing degenerate, and I was too. And you know, he was my
right. And who made the plastics? Where did the plastics come from? Oh, that wasn't invented by white people? The plastic? Come on, man. The white people invented the plastic. They made the plastic. So all the plastic that's polluting the rivers, it's pretty obvious, right? I'm not saying it's all their fault, but they created things that pollute things, right? And they sell them to people, right? This is it. They sold fucked up pesticides and DDT to those people, right? So some shit is banned in the US, but you could sell it to brown people overseas. It's fucked up. So they get born with birth defects because of the pesticides that's banned in your country. That's fucked up shit. You got to take credit for that. And if you want to take credit for everything that white people did, you got to take credit for that.
best friend, and my parents would take me to like a liberal Lutheran church when I was younger. They didn't really talk much about the Bible. I didn't really care much about anything or know anything about the Bible or religion until I was about 19. A friend of mine who was a Hugo Boss model had he had a drug overdose in Milan, Italy. He was my best friend, and he about died. And he like prayed to God for the first time in his life right before he died, and asked God to save him because he thought he was about to die because he was blacking out.
I mean, the white people will take credit for what they did. You know, if you want to play white people versus other people, then the white people will take credit for what they did. Like, they created Israel, they created plastic, right? So, you know, they followed the Jews all the way to Israel, right? These are white accomplishments, right? So if you want to take credit for everything white people did, right, this is what they did, right? This is what they've accomplished, right? A lot of the plastic that's in the ocean and stuff, right? This is real shit. Petroleum. I mean, it's the Rockefellers that invented petroleum, right? I mean, were they not white people? I mean, it's a good question, right? You know, I mean, if we want to just say, oh, white people are the greatest people on earth, but they did all this shit like create Israel and they got the Rockefellers and stuff. Everybody's bad. You know, we're all children of Adam. Everyone's got some evil in them. Nobody's perfect. And this is the truth behind things, all right? Sorry to say. Yeah, all the plastic comes from Asia and Africa. That doesn't even make any sense. That doesn't even make any fucking sense.
And he has a radical conversion experience, and he was a total drug addict, womanizing degenerate, and I was too. And you know, he was my best friend, and He comes back to Louisville, Kentucky, where I lived at, and started witnessing to me about the scripture. And I had a very powerful conversion experience myself. This was back in 1999. And yeah, from there, it was a lot of warfare, intellectual warfare about where the hell I'm supposed to go to church, and trying to weave my way through all these thousands of denominations.
Yeah, it's called international trade, Moontan. All the countries were involved in that. It's not just Asians and Africans that are buying plastic products. I'm sorry to inform this to you. Do you not understand this? It's not just Asians and Africans that are using plastic products that pollute the world. Ocean. They're buying, selling, using, polluting. It's the entire world problem. Right? It's the world technological system. Okay, it's not Africans and Asians are polluting the entire world's oceans. I mean, that's very simplistic. Right? Who sold them all the shit to pollute all that shit? Right? I mean, it's a great question, isn't it? Right? Where'd they get the plastic products? Or do they make them too? Do they make the products too that they're polluting things with? I mean, come on now. I mean, it's just wild. You know?
Yeah, I wanted to say it was alarming that I found out that a majority of the landfills, like over there in some of the African countries, people were getting some of the very first CPU units of the very first Macintosh and Apple computers. And that's how these scammers were able to get people's family members' personal info. They were able to revive the hard drives on these old ass CPU units and were able to take people's personal information off of it. So, you know, it does go to say that, you know, the, like you were saying about the worldwide industrialness of how something can be created by somebody in one place, be distributed in a completely different part of the world and by someone else, and then by the time it reaches a landfill, it's already ended up in an entire part of the world. Or, you know, it is crazy to sit here and think that in reality, you know, I do agree with you, dude. I mean, if you want to say Jews are technically behind everything as white people, but I do admit, you know, as like someone who plays Red Dead Redemption a lot, you know, I hate to say it, but when you really look at who's the bad guy in the game, it's the character you play as. Who's behind a majority of the bad things that happened back in the old Western times? Oh, white dude. You know, I'm not saying it's all white people in general, but it is kind of hilarious that, like, you know, there's a reason why in a majority of movies the supervillain isn't a black dude. So I'm just saying, you know, it does make you really wonder where you have to admit and kind of place the blame on certain things, like such as, you know, who really is. I mean, does that go to say that they're just using the white man as a scapegoat? I mean, I don't know, but, you know, as someone, like you said, we're all, you know, children of Adam, which means, you know, in reality, is there a such thing as different races? No, I've never believed in that, TML. I've never believed that there's a difference between me and a black man other than the outward appearance and culture and things like that. So, you know, it is a very strange thing when at the end of the day, how do you pinpoint what's behind the war machine? Because it's not just a war machine in the fact of it's just warfare. It's, you know, industrialization, you know, the mechanisms of which goes into every aspect of what's put us in this current world system. I mean, it is fucking insane, ain't it, dude? I don't know. I don't know what to really say. You know, I don't like playing the whole race thing, but, you know, yeah, I mean, you can say that, you know, generally white people have been the common cause of a majority of the suffering of people who are not the same skin color as me. And, you know, it is fucked up. It's fucked up. You know, I can sit here and feel just as bad for any other, you know, child as I could a white child. So it just makes no sense, the kind of world that we're living in where, you know, they want to push this humanist, excuse me, damn, this humanistic, you know, love everyone, you know, love the Jews, but, you know, how dare you, you know, love a Muslim or something. It's so dumb. It makes no sense to me. You know, every aspect in your life, when you see a fucking ad, oh, we're all in this together. We're, you know, we're strong together, apes together strong. But, you know, at every single moment of the day, they're selling division, and just, it makes no sense. Sorry.
And there was a lot of study. I went to Bob Jones University for university, which I think was a great school. I think a lot of young men would really benefit nowadays from a military school education, and it could, for the discipline and the ego destruction that is necessary for most young men. I left the university as a Presbyterian, and I went to graduate school as a Presbyterian. I still am. I do believe the Presbyterian theology to be the distinctives of Presbyterianism to be what the New Testament's teaching. There's just a lot of baggage that was still left in the Reformation, a lot of metaphysics and Neoplatonism. I was a minister in training in the Free Church of Scotland up until 2011, 2012. The first thing that got me out of traditional Christianity was doing a deep dive on the Trinity and the early church fathers' metaphysics. And over the years of studying, I read everything, all the Eastern Orthodox guys. Me and Jay Dyer were going back and forth with each other back in 2009. He knows me very well. We've never been friends. We've always been enemies. Me and Jay and Perry Robinson and Daniel Photius Jones and Jay Norman, all the leading old school Eastern Orthodox apologists, we were going at each other hard back in 2009 to 2011. And just getting more and more acquainted with the early church fathers and the ecumenical councils, I couldn't believe in this Trinity thing anymore. Because the first thing that was just really mind shattering to me is realizing that there's.
It's their fault because they invented the plastic and sold it to those people. They do business with the Chinese and all those people that are polluting the ocean with the plastic. So they're making money off of the pollution. And if you don't understand how they benefit directly from the pollution and have caused it, I don't know what to say. They're literally directly linked. But yeah, I'm going to go back to the beginning of this thing because I'm not getting a lot so far. I'm sort of like arguing with Moontan. It's kind of more fun right now. But yeah. But yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am here with Drake of the Southern Israelite channel. Drake reached out because I guess some of his students recommended that we had a discussion on Platonism versus...
Oh, now we don't even know what white people means. This is crazy.
A more kind of traditional Near Eastern interpretation of the Bible and Christianity. Of course, I'm a Christian Platonist. In many ways, I emphasize the Platonist aspect of that. I don't consider myself an expert on the church fathers. I have read many of them, and I care about the Christian tradition, but I'm not a biblical literalist like Drake.
I'm not the same as an Indian or a Somali either, so don't get it twisted. Straight up, I'm very different from those people, but all right.
Drake is, and I think this will make for an interesting discussion. He has some unique views. So to get started with, if you just want to introduce yourself to our audience, and then maybe you can kind of explain, what is your position, where are you coming from, how do you come to it?
Yeah. So my name's Drake. I was raised kind of atheist, and my parents would take me to like a liberal Lutheran church when I was younger. They didn't really talk much about the Bible. I didn't really care much about anything or know anything about the Bible and religion until I was about 19. A friend of mine who was a Hugo Boss model had a drug overdose in Milan, Italy. He was my best friend, and he about died. And he prayed to God for the first time in his life right before he died, and asked God to save him because he thought he was about to die because he was blacking out. And he has a radical conversion experience, and he was a total drug addict, womanizing degenerate, and I was too. And he was my best friend, and he comes back to Louisville, Kentucky, where I lived at, and started witnessing to me about the scripture. And I had a very powerful conversion experience myself. This was back in 1999. And yeah, from there, it was a lot of warfare, intellectual warfare about where the hell I'm supposed to go to church, and trying to weave my way through all these thousands of denominations. And it was a lot of study. I went to Bob Jones University for university, which I think was a great school. I think a lot of young men would really benefit nowadays from a military school education, and it could for the discipline and the ego destruction that is necessary for most young men. I left the university as a Presbyterian, and I went to graduate school as a Presbyterian. I still am. I do believe the Presbyterian theology to be the distinctives of Presbyterianism to be what the New Testament's teaching. There's just a lot of baggage that was still left in the Reformation, a lot of metaphysics and Neoplatonism. I was a minister in training in the Free Church of Scotland up until 2011, 2012. The first thing that got me out of traditional Christianity was doing a deep dive on the Trinity and the early church fathers' metaphysics. And over the years of studying, I read everything, all the Eastern Orthodox guys. Me and Jay Dyer were going back and forth with each other back in 2009. He knows me very.
All right. I guess the lone star up in this piece, the machine lies. Should I just restream to my audience? Because I'm literally up here alone at this point. Yeah, hold on. Let me text. Let me text Abby real quick. All right, here. Let me restream this bad boy. And we're going to review this thing like it's never been reviewed before. Never been reviewed before. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the video. And don't distract me, Moontan. All right, I'm just kidding. I'm so glad to be talking to you again, Moontan. I mean, I definitely did miss you. And criticize Americans all the time for their anti-Jew mimicry, but never taking responsibility for all the heinous shit they do to the world in a country where plastic straws are banned. That's awesome. That is awesome. But yeah, then people would cry, my freedom. That's hilarious, yo. All right, yeah, let me stream to the Cyber Caliphate. Southern Israelite. Actually, let me just put smoking crack with Neuro Jack. Smoking Neuro crack with Neuro Jack 3. Actually, you know what? What should I put for this? Yeah, I'll just call it Southern Arvol Southern Israelite Review. Arvol Southern Israelite. Southern Israelite Review. All right. I've been meaning to review this video, so we'll see what happens here. me see what's popping up here. Blessings to all the people. I appreciate you. And wait, am I not streaming? Did I pick the wrong channel? Oh shit, man, I did the wrong channel. Wait, what? How come it won't show my stream? What? Yo, it won't even show my stream on the live page. Like, what's the deal here? Anyways, okay, let's move on. This is embarrassing. Let me move on.
Of the Southern Israelite channel, Drake reached out because I guess some of his students recommended that we had a discussion on Platonism versus a more kind of traditional Near Eastern interpretation of the Bible and Christianity. Of course, I'm a Christian Platonist. In many
There he is. He's a Christian Platonist. So this is an interesting designation, right? It's crazy. So, I mean, that is a very interesting designation for several reasons, because as we discussed many times, the three hypostases of Plotinus, right, and the link with the Trinity, right, and how it says, homoousia. I believe it says that in the Athanasius Creed. Right, it uses the term homoousia, or of the same essence. Right, so there's interesting connections between the explanations of Christianity and Greek philosophy, right? Obviously, the terminology, the logos, right? So he's sort of saying he's saying he's a Christian Neoplatonist. Now, I wonder, because I've heard other Christians say this, or he didn't say Neoplatonist, he just said Platonist, right? But I've seen other thinkers like E. Michael Jones claim this, and he even said that the demiurge of Plato is like an accurate representation of God and stuff like that. So I don't know how far he goes, but I would sort of think that maybe the demiurge of Plato could not be a appropriate replacement, right, for this whole notion of Jesus, right, and also the entire aspect of the Trinity, right, because I believe in Neoplatonism, right, the good, the nous, or the mind, and the world soul were actually three different they were not of a one configuration, right, but they were sort of emanations of each other, and they were in a hierarchical configuration. Like, all things emanate from the one, and the first thing that emanates from it is the mind, and then the world soul emanates from the mind. So it's a little different than the Christian Trinity. In the Aeneads of Plotinus. So yeah, so let's explore. And I know that Southern Israelite is a huge proponent of Platonism. Okay, he really dislikes Platonism. He thinks that Platonism led to the downfall of the West because it created universalism and all this type of stuff, right? So, he thinks that basically they led to things like Hegel and Teilhard de Chardin and all this type of stuff, right? So he just calls himself a Hebrew, not even a Christian, as a result of that. Is so much in rejection of the normative Christian viewpoint. Right, but he thinks that conventional Christianity is basically hijacked by Plato, right? So it's interesting, right? So anyways, so there I've set this up. Let's move on to this. Blessings.
Ways I emphasize the Platonist aspect of that. I don't consider myself an expert on the church fathers. I have read many of them, and I care about the Christian tradition, but I'm not a biblical literalist like Drake is. And I think this will make for an interesting discussion. He has some unique views. So to get started with, if you just want to introduce yourself to our audience, and then maybe you can kind of explain, what is your position, where are you coming from, how do you come to it?
Yeah. So my name's Drake. I was raised kind of atheist, and my parents would take me to like a liberal Lutheran church when I was younger. They didn't really talk much about the Bible. I didn't really care much about anything or know anything about the Bible or religion until I was about 19. A friend of mine who was a Hugo Boss model had a drug overdose in Milan, Italy. He was my best friend, and he about died, and he like prayed to God for the first time in his life right before he died, and asked God to save him because he thought he was about to die because he was blacking out. And he has a radical conversion experience, and he was a total drug addict, womanizing degenerate, and I was too. And he was my best friend, and he comes back to Louisville, Kentucky, where I lived at, and started witnessing to me about the scripture. And I had a very powerful conversion experience myself. This was back in 1999, and from there it was a lot of warfare, intellectual warfare about where the hell I'm supposed to go to church, and trying to weave my way through all these thousands of denominations. And it was a lot of study. I went to Bob Jones University for university, which I think was a great school. I think a lot of young men would really benefit nowadays from a military school education, and it could, for the discipline and the ego destruction that is necessary for most young men. I left the university as a Presbyterian, and I went to graduate school as a Presbyterian. I still am. I do believe the Presbyterian theology to be the distinctives of Presbyterianism to be what the New Testament's teaching. There's just a lot of baggage that was still left in the Reformation, a lot of metaphysics and Neoplatonism. I was a minister in training in the Free Church of Scotland up until 2011, 2012. The first thing that got me out of traditional Christianity was doing a deep dive on the Trinity and the early church fathers' metaphysics. And over the years of studying, I read everything, all the Eastern Orthodox guys. Me and Jay Dyer were going back and forth with each other back in 2009. He knows me very well. We've never been friends. We've always been enemies. Me and Jay and Perry Robinson and Daniel Photius Jones and Jay Norman, all the leading old school Eastern Orthodox apologists, were going at each other hard back in 2009 to 2011. And just getting more and more acquainted with the early church fathers and the ecumenical councils, I couldn't believe in this Trinity thing anymore. Because the first thing that was just really mind shattering to me is realizing that I've cataloged 40 different versions of the Trinity doctrine. There's like 40 of them. There's like 4 primary ones: the Eastern monarchy of the Father, the Latin version, and then a few Sabellian offshoots of that. There's like 40 of them, but there's like 3 or 4 primarily, and that was really.
Yeah, now I don't know if there's a sort of nominal version of the Trinity, right, that you could believe in that's not sort of doesn't really imply modalism or tritheism, right? Tritheism means there's 3 gods, and modalism means that that the one God changes into the Son and into the Holy Spirit, right? So an easy way to explain the Trinity, right, is that it's 3 persons, 1 God, 1 essence, right? And yeah, so they don't change into each other, and there's not sort of polytheism going on, right? Or so to speak, right? So they try to explain it that way. Right, and there's a sort of other ways to explain this, social Trinitarianism, right, and so on and so forth, right? That sort of explains why it would be necessary for there to be a multiplicity in the Godhead to arrive at something like creation, right? So they sort of talk about how creation is necessitated by the fact that there's multiplicity in the within the Godhead, or I don't think they would use the term necessitated, because that sort of sounds sort of hermetic, or right. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, the Trinity itself, right? He finds that doctrine to be problematic. I wonder if the Christian Platonist will follow him there, because they must have a different version of the Trinity, right? There was Christian groups that were more into like Greek philosophy, and they sort of I mean, some of the Gnostics were really into Greek philosophy, right? So they sort of subverted the message through their use of that, right? So anyways, let's move on.
Really disturbing to me when I realized that, and I just started questioning the whole process of metaphysics. Just the whole thing just seemed extremely arbitrary to me. The whole concept of metaphysics, this reification of some noumenal realm, I had a really big problem with it, and I left Christianity back in 2012. I relinquished my status as a minister in training in the Free Church of Scotland, and over the past 13 years, I was for about a year and a half after I left Christianity, I was just really bitter at life and didn't really trust anyone. I thought everything was a conspiracy at that time in my life, and then I got it really hard into the Hebrew roots movement. There was a lot of guys in the Hebrew roots movement who were saying a lot of stuff I said and had very similar experiences. That, you know, it's very obvious the church is trying to interpret the Bible through Greek metaphysics, and we should be interpreting the Bible through the parameters and the philosophy of science that you find in the Old Testament. And I got a lot of close friends in the Hebrew roots movement. Found out.
So there's a basic setup. I mean, the problem with the Bible is that it's sandwiched in between the Jewish religion, right? I mean, with the Christian Bible, right? Sandwiched in between the Jewish religion and the Greek metaphysics, right? So I mean, he's chosen to sort of reject the Greek metaphysics and go to quote unquote Hebrew roots, right? But doesn't that make you like a British Israelist, or doesn't that make you close to a Christian identity person? Or I guess maybe we could have him on, ask him these things.
Probably about 2 years of being involved with that. That was just another Baptist Jesuit psyop. It's just kind of more Judaizing Baptist. It's just the Baptist church with a little bit more Nation of Israel flair in it, in the Hebrew roots movement. Really wasn't satisfied with that, and I've just kind of started my own thing, at least here in the West. But basically, I've written 28 books on all this stuff of my departure from Christianity to early Messianic Judaism. What I discovered in the Hebrew roots movement, which is true, is that the original religion of Jesus and his apostles was this Jewish religion they were called the Nazarenes. And then this group called the Ebionites broke out of them later on over a dispute with Paul. And
okay, so there you have the Ebionites and the the quote unquote Jewish Christians, right? And they sort of follow the law, right? And they reject the teachings of Paul, right? And they also compose the pseudo-Clementine writings, right? So yeah, so it's interesting, right?
To realize
He's saying that Arius and the Ebionites are basically more right than the conventional church view, right?
that the early manuscripts of
And he's rejected Hebrew roots, so he barely just almost accepted becoming a sort of Jewified Christian for a little while, but he thought that was totally untenable, right? So then he basically said, look deeper into the ideas, and yeah, it's like, how can you follow the Bible but not be a Jew? But then he said he follows early Messianic Judaism, right? So but I'm really more interested in R. Vol's views. I've already talked to Southern Israelite, right? So I'm actually more interested in what R. Vol's got to say and how his views interact with Southern Israelites' views, right? So honestly, I already like Southern Israelite. He's a really smart dude. As he said, he wrote 28 books. Every time I've heard him talk, he said some shit that was totally on point, right? So yeah, the guy's a deep thinker for sure.
New Testament were actually written in
Now the Arvo guy, I'm not too sure about him, so that's why I'm
Hebrew and Aramaic, and were to be understood in the Hebrew and Aramaic, kind of Middle Eastern, ancient Near Eastern milieu of thought. And then back up real quick. So like one of the books that I read right before I left Christianity was this book called Ancient Christianity by Isaac Taylor. And what Isaac Taylor, he was the leading Protestant in England during the Tractarian controversy with John Henry Newman and all the Catholics who were trying to bring England back into the Catholic Church back in like the 1840s, mid 1800s. And he wrote this book called Ancient Christianity, and it was his gauntlet of why the Church of England should not go back to Catholicism. And what he pointed out was the early church fathers were teaching perennialism, which is found in which I know you believe this, but the Justin Martyr in his second apology, chapter 10 and 13, is that Socrates and all these Greek philosophers had spermatic logos. And so it's clearly a perennial philosophy from the very beginning of Christianity and from the early church. And then secondly, they teach the doctrine of apotheosis, which is what the serpent taught in the book of Genesis. And then thirdly, they teach this doctrine of angelic celibacy, which is clearly condemned by Paul in 1 Timothy 4.
Okay, so it's interesting what he's chosen, right, as sort of a roadmap. He said first they got hijacked by this concept of logos spermaticos and basically accepted a proto form of theistic evolution, claiming that the God had seeded the world with these Greek philosophers to prepare the world for the Christian teaching, right? Secondly, right, he says, well, actually, let me go back one point here.
So they teach the doctrine of apotheosis, which
apotheosis. Now I've heard maybe it's not apotheosis, but theosis and how apotheosis sort of differs from theosis. I think he's saying that theosis and apotheosis are sort of a same concept. It's sort of the becoming of God or the externalization of God into another being and so on and so forth.
Is what the serpent taught in the book of Genesis. And then thirdly, they teach this doctrine of angelic celibacy, which is clearly condemned by Paul in 1 Timothy 4. And so what Isaac Taylor was saying was, screw the church fathers, just screw them. Like all these Tractarian scholars were like, oh, Calvinism contradicts the church fathers. Calvinism contradicts the church fathers. And Isaac Taylor's like, fine, screw the church fathers. I think they're antichrist people who led us astray. And here are my reasons. And he fills that book with proof that they taught these things. And I think it's indisputable that they taught these things. And so I've just completely abandoned Western philosophy in toto. And
oh yeah, I forgot to mention the third thing, this idea of angelic celibacy, right? Which is interesting because this angelic celibacy concept, he's saying that this sort of deals with this Platonic dualism, right? And this notion of spirit bodies and how basically, you would be resurrected in a spiritual form, and how there's a whole idea that, if you maintain celibacy, that means that you're you've maintained purity. I think maybe they get that from Virgin Mary as well, right? That there's this idea of purity, right? And sanctity, right? So this is antithetical to civilization because it's not about the family, it's about maintaining spiritual purity, right? And that sort of separates the needs of this world from the needs of the next world, and so on and so forth. So he's I've heard him make the sort of argument, that yeah.
I have adopted the ancient Near Eastern way of looking at the Bible. You begin with a philosophy of sympathetic magic as your inner science and physics. Your cosmology is flat Earth, which I've been involved in for over 10 years. And all those debates, I've debated all the biggest dudes. They've never even remotely challenged what I have to say. You have you don't have a natural law theory. We don't believe in natural law. The moral system that's in the Bible is a very forensic law system. It's just God's opinions on stuff. Incest is completely natural for the first 2,000 years of biblical history, and then God just issues a statute and changes what had been natural practice for 2,000 years. It's not a natural law theory. It's forensic opinions that God gives from his position of sovereignty. And so it's a might makes right theory of morality. And that's the bare bones of it right there. I could go into more detail, but I don't want to monologue too much.
It's very interesting.
There's this thing: no idealism, no just cold, hard empiricism, right? Might makes right, right? You deal with the power relations in the world. You set up a theopolitical state or a community, right? And yeah, I think I heard him say like the world is like ran by gangs, and that this is a real conflict in the world, and they're all vying for their own, and then obviously white people need to do the same thing, right? So he's sympathetic to Arvo's ideas on that, right? That the whites, they need their own thing, right? They can't get mixed up with other people and rely on this universalism, liberalism, right, to try to combine with everyone, right? They can't promote this sort of ideology, right? They have to sort of nip it in the bud by nipping it in the bud with Platonism, get rid of Platonism itself, right? So yeah, I think Southern Israelite has a pretty robust philosophy, right? So let's hear Arvo.
So of course I'm coming from a very different perspective. I would place philosophy first, just because I think existentially that's the position that we are in order to come into any particular theological view or interpretation of Christianity, religious worldview. You're going to have to rely on your senses, your reason, your interpretation of the evidence. And so we're kind of just in this boat where we have to discern how we come to a valid worldview. In that process of, evaluating how we ought to be arguing, how we ought to interpret sense data, the various ranks of priority and trust we should place on our different epistemological faculties, isolating those faculties, and then employing that data in theory building. Like that's just the boat that we're in order to arrive at any worldview. We're going to have to develop our own philosophical norms and methods. And so because that's what's given, I would say that God is de facto prioritizing prior to religious revelation our natural philosophical capacities, because in order to come into a religious worldview first, we are employing philosophical methods whether we
So he's saying that reason and faith are really on par with each other, that God is explained through reason, that it was first philosophy that developed this idea of God, and then religion sort of fulfilled it, right? But the God of the philosophers is not the God of the theologians. Okay, or else there would be no battles going on into the 11th and 12th century with the Aristotelians, right? And they had to create all these new ideas to sort of deal with the fact that you had to explain why God came into the world, but God is a sort of eternal being, but the world is constantly changing. Right, so they use the philosophy of Plato and Aristotle to show why the world changes. Right, but they couldn't accept the idea that the world is eternal and it's simply molded by God, right? So so I don't see as so much so as the philosophy, right? Because see, the Jewish religion supposedly already existed, right, during the time of Plato's philosophy. Right, so in what form did it exist? That's not very clear, right? Did they have a preserved version of like any of the books that they had, or did they already change it and go into different sects and all this stuff, or was it never really a real thing? They just made it up, and then other people took it over, right? So I mean, it's just interesting, right? He knows that where philosophy came from, but does he know where Judaism came from and why it's combined with the philosophy? There's clearly two different things. But I think Southern Israelite is right about this. I think the Old Testament has very little to do with like Greek philosophy, but it's concurrent with the text of Greek philosophy, right? So if he's saying that philosophy was a preparation for the Christian religion, or that philosophy is a preparation for religion in general, or that God employs our reason, right, where it seems like God is beyond knowledge, right? If you're to sort of allow something like God to exist, then it sort of doesn't make sense more than it makes sense. Reality is stranger than fiction, etc., right? But yeah, anyways.
Call them philosophical or not. So, I would depart from you like with the very first premises. I am not a biblical literalist or even inerrantist. I don't think the Bible itself says explicitly that every propositional statement contained in it is true. Paul says some things about scripture. It's edifying, wholesome, etc. I forget the list of adjectives, but infallible is not on that list. And I don't know that there is any biblical passage that says, by the way, everything contained in this book is inerrant or infallible. And of course, the authors of the earlier sections of the Bible didn't know what the whole Bible would be, which books would be in it. So to come to the position that the Bible is the end all be all of truth, and that's the ultimate source, arguments are necessary from my perspective. For some people, it's presuppositional. For me, it's not. I believe in the teachings of Jesus because of their demonstrated effectiveness. I do see Jesus's teachings as being fully in harmony with the teachings of Socrates There's even several quotes of Socrates that Jesus seems to allude to at some level. Like Socrates before Jesus said that if your hand causes you to sin, it's better to lose your hand than to fall into sin.
Yeah, that sounds like Islamic, right? I mean, you cut your hand off, right? But it's just like, I don't know. It's like all this idea, right? That Socrates and Jesus are similar. You know, it definitely is an interesting sort of proposal, right? But I think if you measure up their teachings and you see who Socrates was sort of a student of and who his associates were and what some of his students did with his writings, right? It seems like the project there is extremely different than what happened with Jesus, right? For Jesus, right, these guys went and like became like martyrs and saints, right? Like Socrates' disciples who were basically like ascetics and sort of you know, like people who were, you know, social outcasts like Socrates was. Their teachings didn't really get passed on that much. It was more like the people who studied like Plato and Pythagoras, and they opened up schools, and you know, so I mean, what did, you know, it seemed like their achievements were totally different. Right, and just because you're saying they're both going around talking to people and critiquing society, right? There's thousands of people who did that throughout history. You can look at Buddha, you can look at Lao Tzu, you can look at, you know, any of these people, right?
So, and there are other kind of analogies in his way of going about discourse. You know, he kind of reads like Socrates going among the people, making these arguments. You know, Jesus famously has a lot of very effective rebuttals when people come to contest his claims and his message. And then, as far as the actual ethical teaching, reciprocal forgiveness, I think if you add that core doctrine on top of Platonism generally, you have a moral system that, I mean, the West has been operating on, and I'm not against Western.
I think actually Socrates, or at least how Plato puts it, he believed in a sort of atomism that's mixed with a idea of Anaxagoras, right? That the mind is stirring all things, right? So he thought like that there's nous or mind that's sort of moving everything, right? But it's all like atoms, right? So I could be wrong, but when I investigate the beliefs of Socrates, I think he may have, or historians say he may have taught something like this. That does not seem like the cosmology that's represented by the Christians or the Old Testament or anything like that, right? It just seems totally dissimilar to it. But you look at the pre-Socratic philosophers and how they talked about this concept of natural law, which I think Southern Israelites said he rejects the concept of natural law, right? You know, as being this sort of idealistic mode through which things are fashioned, right, through reason, right? He said he believes in a sort of forensic epistemology instead, right? So it's interesting.
Philosophy, I say that Western philosophy led to Western science and technology, and we clearly understand the world better than the ancient Near Eastern magicians.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't, right? They had to make significant improvements on what Aristotle and Plato taught, and even to a certain extent reject their teachings, right, for sort of naturalist epistemology at times, right? So it was through some pretty serious rejections of Aristotelianism and all these things that modern science really even came about, right? So I mean, yes, it's based on that stuff, right? But it's also hard to say that, you know, either Plato or Aristotle would have agreed with just naturalism, right? They definitely rejected that, right? And that seems to be the dominant mode. But see, what I find interesting is that Southern Israelite sort of accepts a sort of base form of naturalism, right? Having rejected Plato and Aristotle, right? Yet he doesn't take credit for the achievements of the modern world and so on and so forth. And, or, he actually rejects modernism, right? So, I don't know why Arvel wants to go move back to his white community, but he's proud of the achievements, right, of science and of the West, and that have basically caused this global system to emerge. And he does not reject modernity, which a consequence of modernity is that you don't get to have your white society, right? I just think that's really interesting.
And we demonstrate that through engineering applications, as well as an ability to predict physical phenomena. So that's just kind of comes from my basic prioritizing of our innate philosophical capacities. God gave us that in an inalienable way. Our reason can't be taken from us without destroying our essence. Whereas biblical revelation, I mean, people have amnesia. So a previously devout Christian could get amnesia and be deprived of all of his doctrinal commitments that come from the Bible or from any institution, and he would still maintain his essence. So since the one is essential and the other is accidental, God seems himself kind of in us to privilege and prioritize philosophical methods. So I guess we can start there and then kind of work up from there. So what would you say to that initial argument? I'll just kind of reduce it to the one point that God himself seems to necessitate that we do rely on philosophical methods, whereas it's not necessitated by nature, by our nature, or by historical circumstance that we derive these truths from the Bible, because clearly people have gotten by as human beings, never hearing of Jesus, never hearing of the books of the Hebrew Bible, and so forth.
Well, first of all, I would just, I don't fundamentally, this is coming from an ancient Near Eastern authoritarian, might makes right kind of worldview. I don't think it's healthy for most people to be involved in philosophy at all. I think philosophy should be confined to men that are very intellectually gifted, have great moral discipline, and are in positions of power in a society.
Yeah, that's probably correct. Philosophy is most likely not a team sport, right? There's like very rare types of like women and men that have a disposition for philosophy, right? So yeah, I particularly agree with the statement that no, philosophy is not a team sport. No, it's not something that we all promote in the school, and it's the ethos of civilization and all this stuff. No, it's a dangerous material that should be regarded as only basically available to those who have imbibed the total package of like the social mores and have proven themselves to be like upright citizens and stuff. Then we'll allow you to do some philosophy, right? Because it has led to some it's pretty interesting, the problems that arise in society when you just let everybody do philosophy, right? So everybody just come up with whatever ideas you think are possible to make the best type of society that's possible, right? And we all lose track of the traditions and the rights and our culture. And so he does have a valid point, right? That idealism is a sort of threat to social mores. Right, and you need a sort of you need to train a special class, right? So I think Plato maybe got that one right, that philosophy is at least dangerous enough that but at the same time, right, I don't think that philosophy should be like a special thing, right? That should be used to govern society, right? Because it tends towards idealism, right? So I think maybe it should be seen as a tool and not a sort of profession or a goal, right? Like a way of looking at things, right? But you know, I mean, you know, like most people should be farmers, right? I think they should have like 90% farmers, like 10% warriors. You don't really need that much else, right?
Society. I think when everyone's walking around thinking they're a scholar, like we have nowadays, it's just ubiquitous vomiting of ignorance and stupidity while swamping out the voices of real intellectuals. I think philosophy is a extremely dangerous thing in the hands of the common people, just in general. I think people should have to get a license to read. Honestly, I have very strongly questioned the very notion of universal literacy. Most people that I've seen get involved in philosophy destroy themselves. They destroy every relationship in their lives.
Yeah, I can vouch for that one. It doesn't seem like a lot of the people that I've seen engaging in philosophy, like in college and stuff, like they all just got regular jobs. It didn't really lead anywhere, right? So yeah, they did not become like philosophy professors, and no, they're not doing philosophy. It's not something that you do, right? So yeah, I think he's right. Right, the incessant questioning, the incessant drive towards idealism, right? Unless you're looking at the historical context of how ideas developed and trying to, you know, understand in terms of politics, in terms of history, in terms of, you know, other ideas, right? How, you know, different concepts, you know, came about, right? I don't think it's necessary for most people to engage in it, right? And if that's most of what you do, then yeah, I mean, you're pretty much useless, right? You know,
arguing over things that they haven't actually studied, ruining relationships with their parents, with their friends, and really just wasting years of their lives on a rat race of a journey, some intellectual journey that they were not intellectually capable of fulfilling from the very beginning. Philosophy takes a lot of training, a lot of study. It takes a high intellect, and vast majority of people do not have this. That would fundamentally, in the opposite of the idea of raising of conscience, people's conscience need to be raised. No, people's conscience needs to be lowered. It needs to be more simplified, at least among the masses of people. Obviously, you're going to have your scholars and your professional statesmen, you know, in any functioning society. You're going to have people in positions of power who need to be masters of these issues. But among the common people, I think from what I've seen my entire life, and especially with the rise of the internet, universal literacy and you know, like getting people debating, like common people who work a 40-hour job debating stuff on the internet is a complete waste of time. I think people should be able to, the top intellects in a society should be able to have public debate.
that's the thing, is like a lot of these people that debate, they are not scholars. Right, there's a lot of people who just debate because they're for the optics. They want contests, they want a clout chase, they want a grift, or they're getting paid to promote a certain ideology, right? And yeah, I mean, there should be an easy way to weed those people out by only engaging with people who are engaging also in scholarly pursuits, right? So you only debate those people. Right, and you guys agree to share all your sources, and then you could take a look and you could challenge your own ideas, and then you could refine your concepts and move on. You know, this is how things happen, right? Between scholars. Where you compare your resources and then you move on. right? So I mean, this is actually really weird that you have intellectual contests and it's appeal to the audience to see who wins, or whoever gets more money or something stupid like that, or whoever yells over the other person or whatever. And a lot of these topics, right? You're now seeing a lot of fake debates where it's like, it's like, are women with a high body count still valuable to society? Right? Or like some really stupid like that, right? Or like there's some dumb debates now, right? Which are like, but yeah.
Debates, and people can listen to them debate and decide for themselves, not this free for all dumpster fire that we have, in modern Western society. As far as what you said about using your senses to do science, isn't that a little difficult when like literally the last guy I debated on Fight the Flat Earth, everything he's doing is based on some form of Neoplatonism, and he literally said it in a debate he had with one of my students.
Yeah, that's right, Moontan. I've seen a lot of these guys that have like a degree in philosophy, and they are, all they can do is regurgitate other people's ideas, right? So, but I've met people who have never read a philosophy book who are like philosophers, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit something different, right? To be on a sort of weird vibe where you can actually think of new ideas, right? Like our friend Twilight, son of Lilith, right? He's more philosophical than a lot of people who study philosophy, right? But it's like he doesn't really fuck with, like, if I told him like, oh, about like, this, that, and the third thing with like Kant and Descartes and all these guys, like, he wouldn't really care that much. He'd be like, well, there's other guys that are more intellectual than these guys. And for all intents and purposes, right? There's people who read song lyrics and they're deeper than people who have read philosophy books, right? I mean, honestly.
You can't even see your hand before your face. That's a direct quote of what he said. He's the leading globe Earth debater there is that I know of. And he says you can't even see your hand before your face. This intellectual noumenal construction of reality that has gone on in the West has come to such a point of obscurantism where leaders of Western science say you can't even see your hand before your face. Oh, well, how can you trust your senses believing in Western science?
Right. Well, that's what I was saying before. You have to rank order the trustworthiness of your different epistemological faculties. So the most reliable predictive tools are not sensory in nature. They are theoretical, and specifically they're mathematical, right? We write equations to describe the physical laws, and then we apply those equations given observation. But one piece of sense data isn't itself all that reliable, which is why experiments need to be repeated. You have to interpret that sense data in a very strict sense, right? Sensation alone doesn't tell you of the existence of your hand. Like raw sense data is just data, and it needs to be interpreted by your faculty of understanding to then model what is it that you're looking at, which is why when you're disoriented, you see a blur of colors with your sensation, but you don't immediately understand the room that you're in. That's why optical illusions work as well, because your senses by themselves don't tell you the nature of the physical objects as they are. It requires understanding and interpretation of senses.
See, he's adding a lot there. He's adding the nature of the physical object, right? It's like you don't have to know the nature of the physical object to know you're looking at your fucking hand, man. Right? You know it's your hand, right? Then you have thoughts about what the nature of it is. right? That's all secondary, right? So I just don't think he's actually making any sense when he says, no, you need understanding about the nature of things to know what you're looking at. It's just, it doesn't really follow. No, you get the information, then you figure out what to do with it, right? It's the other way around, right?
Data to get to a grasp of the object itself. And like I said, any one piece of sense data in isolation is not all that reliable. But I also want to address your previous point so that we don't drop points. It's interesting. It's kind of a Platonic line that you're taking, that philosophy is dangerous and shouldn't be handled by the common people. That's what Plato says in the Republic. He says you should not be trained in dialectics until the age of 30, right? You should go through the basic kind of grammatical and other training and then go through mathematics.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, that actually he's agreeing with Plato, Southern Israelite, when he says, that, the masses will never philosophize, that it should be kept to strict rules and we should decide who does it in the society. But the only problem with that, as I said, is that he's giving philosophy a special place in society. So he's not cutting out this drive towards idealism, right? Because he's saying, well, let's put the philosophers in this special place, right? But as I said, it's not a special type of person that it should be, right? It should just be a tool that's used as a way of thinking, right? That should just be generally prescribed, right? But we should realize that not everyone can do it, that it's dangerous, that, most people shouldn't be aware of it and keep it out of the sort of limelight, as it were, right? And I believe that's what our society does anyways, right? Most people are not allowed to know about like philosophy and how it affects them, right? It's a privileged form of knowledge, right? They use terminology and expertise to obfuscate what the philosophy or the text actually mean, right?
Mathematical training for 10 years, and only then should you learn dialectical methods. The hazard being that a young man who is trained in dialectics will rationalize himself into
the guy with the armor, the guy with the under armor is the same guy that we saw in the previous video with the all white colony, right? I'm now showing you guys how he is a Christian Platonist, and what his views are in philosophy, right? To Alpha, the first one, 1222. Question: is the guy in the white Under Armour shirt the man who wants an all-white town, city, country? Yes.
whatever he wants? And you rightly note that philosophy is capable of destroying, especially bright young men. It's a source of temptation. It is a source of hubris. So taking that in the Platonic vein, yes, we should kind of restrict to this esoteric, within the wall space, the approved academic activities. There should be some kind of vetting process to be able to participate in that. And the Western academia, while imperfect, is that kind of process, whether it is just explicit like certification, credentialism, or whether it is demonstrating a certain style of scholarly research where, to get peer reviewed, you have to primarily, they're looking at the format of your paper, right? So you're demonstrating in the way that you present your findings that you are conforming to all of these norms. And to be inculcated into these norms takes time. So you're kind of demonstrating your due diligence and saying, I'm not some dilettante, I'm not just some rando, posing as a philosopher or scientist. So we do.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah. Sure.
All right. So you're saying that I would agree a lot with trad Platonism when it comes to statecraft. The problem is that Christianity has developed its own theory of Platonism called logos theology. And what they taught was, again, beginning with Justin Martyr, was that the logos was working through the Greek philosophers. This kind of metaphysical presence of reason was working through the Greek philosophers to break the Gentile people away from pagan idolatry. And
that's right. Arvel won't address the Christian aspect of his Platonism, right? He says he's a Christian Platonist, right? So why isn't he copping to the developments in Platonism that were made by the church, right? Because they made lots of innovations within ideas of Platonism, right? So as I said earlier in the show, they didn't follow the conventional teachings of Plato, right? So Southern Israelite is right. It's a new form of Plato's philosophy, right? And he's not dealing with the newer aspects of it, right? That are quote unquote Christian, right? So I wonder if Arvel will deal with the Christian aspect again of his Platonism, right?
There's it's kind of this intellectual evolution, and when Jesus, the true logos in the flesh, came, he kind of jumps in the Platonic concept of man and raises. He's in this process of raising it up this chain of being, and over the past 2,000 years, we have been in this process of intellectual evolution. And so, because of the Christian version of Platonism, people think that they've entered into an age of perfection, that there was this huge perfectionist movement in the 19th century with the Wesleyans. John Wesley, Charles Finney, John Humphrey Noyes, and the creation of the Oneida community up in New York. It was massive. They were behind abolition, the abolition of slavery, enormously influential movement called perfectionism. And it's all based on this Christian logos theology. And the problem is that the Christian version of Platonism thinks that there's been this massive evolution of humanity, which is not the case whatsoever. I maintain we still live in an Old Testament world. This world is just as ruthless and bloody and malicious as we read in the pages of the Old Testament. It's just your government and your mass media censor what's going on the mass media. But everyone thinks that they're a scholar now, and they think they're a scholar now because of logos theology. They believe that human beings have evolved spiritually over the last couple thousand years, and so we know the common masses of people don't need to be suppressed under these older institutions of theocratic government, of patriarchy, slavery. We believe they believe we should be liberated from these ancient shackles because of this Christian version of Platonism called logos theology. I would just, to respond to your quote about Platonism.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know that Plato himself, I'm more of a traditional Platonist, would endorse that development. But I would say that I do think the average people have more correct opinions about the nature of the physical world. Morally, I think we have more wrong opinions. And the reason for that is that when you have a very advanced tool, a powerful thing like philosophy, it can be used for good or for ill. This is an argument that Socrates makes in the dialogues. Like, the person who is the best at something is also capable of doing it in the very worst way. The example being, like, the bad mathematician might accidentally get a right answer, right? Whereas the really good mathematician could, if he wanted to, every time give a wrong answer. So the best, when corrupted, becomes the worst. So the fact that a more philosophically and scientifically oriented mass society has led to moral corruption, moral failing, but also produced some correct opinions on the nature of the physical world, doesn't mean that that philosophical method is itself bad. It just means that wielding that tool requires care, and we've not exercised enough care on that. And of course, you would dispute that we have more accurate physical theories than in the past. And I would like to get into that debate. I don't know about debating flat Earths specifically, but I'll cede that the average person shouldn't be engaged in this kind of philosophical process when it comes to the kind of public discourse, the scholarly domain. But still, existentially, they do have to align with some worldview or other. And
yeah, I mean, he is a Protestant, right? But he's blaming Plato for millenarianism, right? Wouldn't Protestantism be more to blame for millenarianism than Plato? And I know that you probably couldn't have, the developments in Protestantism without all of those years of influence from Plato, right? I think actually, I'm pretty sure that Martin Luther wrote treatises on Greek philosophy as well. Right. So anyways, I'll have to actually research that more. Right. That is a good avenue to like sort of question. But yeah.
What are they supposed to rely on to come into a worldview? Is it just whatever their parents believe they should believe too? It's like there is some domain of individual philosophical responsibility. So if you're going to, hold people accountable for their beliefs, then they should have some kind of philosophical grounding to make informed decisions about what to believe. So I guess I'm just curious, what do you recommend to the average person? Like in your, particular situation, you had all of these denominations to look at and discern between. You had to rely on your reason. You used philosophical methods to come to your position, but maybe you think that the average person shouldn't have to do that. And so what should the average person have to do, given that there are, dozens, hundreds, thousands of religious views that you could hold?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think that any good functioning society is going to want to rise the best among us. I mean, obviously, any reasonable government should, give the opportunity to someone who is highly gifted intellectually to apply for a higher position with more privilege in society. Going back real quick, you keep going back to mathematics over and over and over again. Have you read Professor Morris Klein's work up at NYU on the philosophy of mathematics?
Yeah, not of this world. What's going on? Blessings. Yeah, how's it going down there?
No, we could talk about that. I do want to get, because this is more a moral, it's a starting point. Before we decide what we believe, we're going to have to rely on a certain level of critical thinking on our own. So how do you think that should be treated, and what priority? Because clearly you justify your position through your own rational faculties. You justified it to yourself in that way, and you would say it's a better interpretation than other interpretations, other paradigms, on the basis of your own critical faculties. So what should that look like for the average person in a world where there are multiple religions you could subscribe to?
Trying to really grasp what the essence of your question is here. So you're wanting me to explain what I think common people, the way that common people should be educated in society? Is that what you're asking me?
What role should critical thinking and philosophy have if we're going to hold them accountable for their beliefs? Because I don't know if your vision of Christianity is fideistic or what. Sole fide, are you
I completely abandoned the whole label Christianity. Christianity was a word that Greek and Roman people were calling the early believers in the Messiah. The early believers called themselves Nazarenes. When you read the book of Acts, that magistrate calls Paul a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. That's what they were originally called themselves. Christianity was a word that Greek and Romans came up with and labeled the Nazarenes with. I would say Christianity is a Gentile apostasy among the early believers, which is exactly what Paul predicts in Acts chapter 20, 1 Timothy 4, and John predicts in Revelation chapter 13 that the fatal wound of the serpent would be healed. I just completely abandoned this Greek Greco among the early believers, which is themselves. Christianity was a word that Greek and Romans came up with and labeled the Nazarenes with. I would say Christianity is a Gentile apostasy among the early believers, which is exactly what Paul predicts in Acts chapter 20, 1 Timothy.
A Gentile apostasy among the early believers, which he says were the Ebionites. But the Ebionites rejected the teachings of Paul, I believe. Right? And then he says Paul predicted this. Right? So, go back.
Romans came up with and labeled the Nazarenes with. I would say Christianity is a Gentile apostasy among the early believers, which is exactly what Paul predicts in Acts chapter 20, 1 Timothy 4, and John predicts in Revelation chapter 13 that the fatal wound of the serpent would be healed.
Okay, so that's interesting, right? So he's saying that Christianity is apostasy to Judaism, but that this was actually followed by Paul and the Ebionites, even though the Ebionites, I think they rejected Paul. So maybe he's looking at a nuanced position between Paul and the Ebionites. So he doesn't reject Paul, which I'm surprised by, right? Because he rejects Christianity. So that's a really interesting move, right?
I just completely abandoned this Greek
That's fine. That's fine. I can accept the
right.
semantic point on the term, but
I
do you
know
believe
it sounds
salvation?
semantic. It's huge. It's not
No,
semantic.
it's bigger.
There's
I
a lot of
recognize it's bigger
substantial
than
meaning.
that. Just I use the term Christianity, which is why you went into that. But I want to kind of rein it back and address the first principles first. So, are you?
I mean, it's literally a argument between a guy who follows Plato and a guy who follows early Messianic Judaism about Christianity, right? So it's like, like this guy calls himself a Christian Platonist, but there's no Christianity in his Platonism, or I don't know where the Christianity is, but yeah.
You believe that salvation is achieved through faith alone?
I would hold to the Calvinist understanding of salvation, the 5 points of Calvinism. I'm total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints. I definitely believe that's what the New Testament teaches. I'm from
so
that
salvation
background.
is achieved through what?
Justification by faith alone. Well, again, justification is a forensic act, which is because God is sovereign. There is no natural law theory. There's no forms above God that he's compelled to justify by. He justifies by his opinions. He, of his own opinion, he came up with a form of salvation. I'll just invent a statute called blood atonement. Blood atonement has nothing to do with natural law. It's blood magic from ancient Near Eastern philosophy. It's total blood magic. It has nothing to do with Hellenistic philosophy. He just invented it. And then he just invented this substitutionary, a very forensic, juridical system where the sins of the elect are imputed to Christ. He bears their penalty for their sin on the cross. He dies for them in their place. Very juridical. And you notice that passage, I think it's in Luke or John, where it says that Jesus says, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so also must the Son of Man be lifted up. And remember that serpent in the wilderness, the Israelites, they were being bitten by fiery serpents. God commands Moses to use sympathetic magic to heal them, to rear up a snake. It's the sympathetic principle of like for like, the hair of the dog that bit you. Just like what happens in modern medicine, if you get bit by a snake, what's the doctor use? He's going to use sympathetic magic. He's going to take venom from a snake.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
The principle of like for like. That's the first law of sympathetic magic. So the
I think
gospel,
we'll have to address that stuff later. Let's just keep it on faith alone. And my point with that is simply that if our beliefs and what we place faith in carries this enormous moral weight, then the individual.
Yeah, hold on. I just like tripped out for a second. Yeah, blessings, Denise. Thank you so much.
Up the serpent in the wilderness, so also must the Son of Man be lifted up. And remember that serpent in the wilderness, the Israelites, they were being bitten by fiery serpents. God commands Moses to use sympathetic magic to heal them, to rear up a snake. It's the sympathetic principle of like for like, the hair of the dog that bit you. Just like what happens in modern medicine, if you get bit by a snake, what's the doctor use? He's going to use sympathetic magic. He's going to take venom from a snake.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
The principle of like for like. That's the first law of sympathetic magic. So the gospel.
We'll have to address that stuff later. Let's just keep it on faith alone. And my point with that is simply that.
Yeah, I'm really confused by that little detour he went on. Right, sympathetic magic. Hold on. Hold up. Right? Yeah, I'm tripped out by that. And then it was also weird how he wanted to change the subject really fast after he said that, right? He's like, no, let's just really quickly like move on from this. Right. Discussion of magic, right?
If our beliefs
Or Moses being a magician, or pretty interesting, right?
and what we place faith in carries this enormous moral weight, then the individual, when they have many different faiths to possibly subscribe to, is in kind of a predicament. And what should they rely on? What should the individual rely on? Like you relied on your reasoning and your understanding of empirical evidence. You chose the most rational worldview you could, given your state of understanding. So what should people do?
I would like for the people to rely on the Bible, on the Word of God, but people don't do that. They follow people.
Right.
The way that people's psychology works is they go with the people with power in their social group.
But why
That's the
should
way
we believe the Bible in the first place is the question. Really.
What's that?
But why should we believe the Bible in the first place? Because there are other holy texts, other claims to inerrancy and so forth. So why should people believe the Bible?
Yeah, because the climates in the North and the South Pole are radically different, which is impossible on a globe. The dog cam sport footage where we see a heat transfer concentration on the lower atmosphere.
Okay, so he's saying that you cannot you can't interpret the Bible and take it at face value, right? You need philosophy to interpret the Bible. Right, and Southern Israelite is saying, well, there's all this scientific information in the Bible that refutes the scientific consensus. So, if you use some new system of understanding, why not just reject the teachings of the Bible? Everybody's saying if you want to use it, right, then at least understand how it sort of punctures the illusions of the common narratives of the modern world. It's an interesting proposal, right? Because he's pointing out, well, look, there's all this scientific evidence in the Bible that sort of, points to flat Earth. He's definitely gonna like move on from this, right? You could already see it on his face. It's just like the sympathetic magic thing. It's another thing he's gonna be like, nah.
Which is impossible on the globe and only possible on a flat Earth. When you look in the equatorial region, when you watch the sun from noon to sunset, it will take a straight route to the horizon, change in angular size, in magnitudes, which is only possible in the flat Earth. But then when you go 2,000 or 3,000 miles north, in a northern latitude, the sun will come from behind you and take a hard right turn. Now, if the sun was 93 million miles away, the trajectory of the sun, the angular size of the sun would not change at all. It would be exactly the same. But we see the same change in angular size and magnitudes in the equatorial region take a straight trajectory to the horizon. But then in northern latitudes, it will change in size a bit, not as dramatically as it does in the equator, and then it will take a hard right turn, which is only possible in the flat Earth AE map, which is exactly how the Bible describes the world. And you can't have. And whenever I show the empirical evidence, which is undeniable, the Western science wants to drag the conversation into metaphysics. And I'm going to cut you off with your metaphysics with 2 points. Number one, with your theory of gravity, you got to have the sun be a supposedly a solid sphere made of gas, which no one's ever seen before, just completely mentally invented. That's exploding using a process of fission and fusion. It's exploding as a bomb, but at the exact same time, it's attracting all the solar system to itself at the same time. It's just complete bogus contradiction. And then secondly, when it comes to the high tide, Sir Isaac Newton says in the Principia Mathematica that when the moon's at the meridian, that local attractive force will cause the high tide. If that's true, then when the moon's at the meridian, we should all be just sucked out in outer space. It's ludicrous. So, I mean, that's why we should believe the Bible. And secondly, fulfilled prophecy. I describe this in my book on the flat earth. I have numerous books on this, on my index and miscellaneous treaties book on the prophecies in Daniel chapter 8, who predicted the rise of Alexander the Great. And then later on in chapter 9, it prophesies the coming of the Messiah exactly in the time period. There's a couple decades there that are very disputed among chronologists, but Daniel chapter 9 does prophesy that the Messiah would come around the time generally that we understand the time of Christ in the first century. And then in chapters 10 and 11, it predicts all the political machinations among the Greeks and the Seleucid Empire and the
Yo, I don't know what happened. My shit just blacked out. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. We just end it if you want, because I have been back here for like 5 minutes. Nothing's been popping. I'm pretty sure all our peeps left. Yeah, I say just end it. You know, honestly. Shut her down.